Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Demilitarized Zone. This is the one stream designed to help you feel better about engaging in hot-button issues with people you disagree with. Our goal here is to teach discourse and survival tactics, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We cultivate meaningful, intelligent conversation where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is justifying the flaws in what they are saying. So, at least for tonight, check your weapons at the door, take notes, act like grown-ups, and refrain from the blood sports and shit-slinging that have plagued our politics for far too long. But here, our audience does get a say. So, there will be a link in the chat to where you can vote at the end. Costs nothing, it's free, so limber up those voting fingers, okay? And we're going to exercise your democratic rights to decide which side made the most persuasive case. Now, we have 3 prompts for you tonight. We have 6 debaters, so sit back and relax and enjoy as we introduce all of that. Coming up tonight first, our first debate of the night is going to be federal employees should be banned from betting on prediction markets. This is going to be between Vigilante on the right and Testicles on the left. Our second debate of the night is going to be Casey Lee versus Emmet on military-industrial complex should be nationalized is going to be our second debate. And our third debate of the night, again, we're going to have to do that again, I'm sorry, people, is going to be between the unpresent Searka on the right, and on the left is going to be Lutch, the Indian Jesus. This prompt, fucking legal personhood, should begin at conception. There we go. Lutch, the Indian Jesus, is on the affirmative, and Searka will eventually, hopefully, be on the negative. So, going back to this, and it still all works? Yes, it does. Casey, are you frozen? No. Okay.
Am I frozen?
Nope. You were just
okay.
You were doing
Just
the creepy
creepy.
dead stare.
Just being creepy.
Yeah, just being creepy. All right. So, again, like I said, because of the new setup, we can actually get this started, and Searka can kind of come in on his own. LetsChief, if you can just kind of let me know if and or when. I'm not sure, but maybe the fact that I closed the Discord is why it's working now. So I don't know. We'll see.
Hold your breath and power through it.
Yep, that's right. I got through the whole thing, right? All right, cool. Then in that case, we're going to go ahead and move straight on into 30 minutes late, 40 minutes late. Fuck me. I am sorry, everybody. We are going to go to our
Usually
first.
It's everyone else's fault.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it still is because it's Searka. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with our first debate, everybody. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for tuning in. I guess we're not going to do the stream together thing tonight because I don't think anybody else is streaming. So it's just you just got to be here to watch it.
I am streaming.
You are? Who said that?
Casey.
It's Casey, but we have the same viewers, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, except we get better viewers if we whatever. I sent you an invite to the stream together. So if you find that, I'll send it again here in just a second once we get started. Vigi, yes or no? You're not streaming, correct?
Oh, Vigi, you're muted.
You're muted in Discord.
I went live and joined already.
You did? Okay, beautiful. Well, then in that case, yeah. So we got 3 minutes on the clock. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the invites sent out while you guys start cooking. 3 minutes is on the clock. This is going to go to you first, Testies. You know how it works here. I will start the clock when you start to talk. So go ahead.
Alrighty. A federal employee should not be able to make money betting on the same government decisions they help carry out, hear about first, or influence from the inside. Simply put, this is about trust in institutions, and if people lose faith that government decisions are being made in the public interest, then institutions stop functioning the way they're supposed to. It's not always one giant scandal or smoking gun. The risk being run is a slow erosion over time. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Losing public trust has far-reaching implications through all levels of government and society. The most obvious issue here is the conflict of interest of using non-public information for personal financial gain. If the conflict of interest is the loaded gun, then abuse is pulling the trigger. Good ethics rules do not wait for the shot to be fired. In public institutions, the standard is not don't commit a provable crime. The standard is also impartiality, integrity, and public confidence. That's why ethics laws exist in the first place. If the standard were only punish abuse after it is clearly proven, then we would not have things like judicial recusal rules, disclosure rules, gift restrictions, or anti-nepotism rules in the first place. Those rules exist because the structure and appearance of impartiality matter more before abuse occurs. And that is exactly the problem here. The current system asks, how can you prove they traded illegally? But the better question is, why are they allowed to be in that position at all? A conflict of interest is not the same thing as proven abuse. It is the condition that creates serious risk and undermines trust whether or not abuse can be proven. And this abuse is not hypothetical. There are examples, including through a Polymark trader who made $400,000 betting on the capture of Nicolas Maduro, and another bet where the White House press secretary made a speech that lasted for less than 65 minutes. They profited because the speech abruptly ended 30 seconds before the 65-minute mark. More recently, there's been bets surrounding the Iran war, as well as the prices or the manipulation of oil price. And 6 newly created accounts made around $1.2 million betting on when Trump would strike Iran. 40 lawmakers, as early as March 30th, which was less than a week ago, have signed a letter petitioning the CFTC to investigate these things, proving that this is a known issue. And the key issue here is the advantage doesn't have to come from a clean, provable leak. It can come from timing, it can come from personal internal awareness, it can come from knowing something is likely to happen. It doesn't have to be a single classified document. From the outside, the public can't tell the difference of a lucky bet or a well-timed insider bet. That uncertainty alone is corrosive and why the current laws are inadequate. Lastly, my opponent may say that the current laws are adequate as they are. Some of them are, but the rules are not enough because they are mostly reactive and not preventative. They work best against the cleanest and dumbest cases after the fact when you can prove exactly what someone knew and when they knew it. Prediction markets are dangerous precisely because they reward the gray zone of timing, internal awareness, and plausible deniability. The standard for public institutions cannot be, it's probably fine. Thank you.
All right, good stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and go to 3 minutes of open cross-examination. This is directed questioning from Vigilante. This is his opportunity to poke holes, set up arguments, etc., etc. Ultimately, though, he gets to use the time as he sees fit. 3 minutes is on you, Vigi. I will start whenever you start to talk.
Yeah, so question, do all federal employees have access to information before the public does?
So that's a bit of an open question. I would say, I think it's an obvious no. Not all, like the janitors probably don't have access to privileged information. Like
I
offhand.
would say most of them don't, because I mean, like the post office employees definitely don't. Like obviously you mentioned the janitors and stuff. So I mean, your problem seems to be mostly like with like obscure bets on like Polymarket. I mean, couldn't we just limit what people could bet on instead of just banning federal employees from all prediction markets?
So I think that creates more administrative oversight. When, for example, let's say that we allow for maybe something like sports bettings. Well, what if a political figure or Trump is going to make a speech, say at a football game or something, if they're going to wear a specific color tie at some event? So there's a lot of cross where I don't think you can cleanly separate these things. And the point is that it's an overall principle or an overall rule. And because they are in a position where they may be able to get access to information, I think it's better to just have a blanket rule that says they're not allowed to do it.
Uh, so I mean, I can understand mostly like the argument for like appointed and elected officials, but why like the regular federal employees?
Right. So this is referred to as I guess would be a bright line ethics rule. So this is it's supposed to be a clean line, and part of the reason is I think to avoid any ambiguity. Part of the initial reason I said in my opening was that these things have to be proven after the fact. So who knew what and when? It's a lot more administrative oversight, a lot more cost that goes into trying to do these micro policings of certain things. So I think that's why a ban outright would be a cleaner solution.
Yeah, but doesn't banning stuff just drive the issues underground and prevent disclosure?
So disclosure, I would say it there can be a tracking of wrongdoing, but I don't think that sorry, I don't think that disclosure actually solves the issue. Again, think of it as a preventative versus after the fact. So a disclosed conflict would still be a conflict. I don't think that disclosing it solves the core issue here.
Fair enough. We have 30 seconds left, so I don't think we have time for another question.
All right, we can go
Sure.
ahead. We can go ahead and
no,
put a button
it's
on
fine.
it. Not a problem. All right, then in that case, Vigilante, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock for you. Whenever you're ready, sir, clock will start whenever you start to talk. There we go. Go ahead.
Yep. So prediction markets derive their value from the aggregation of diverse information from private sources to estimate the probability of events. This includes things like sports betting, political betting on things like poly market, and then also future bettings on stocks. What do all of these things have in common? They're effectively gambling. Why should we ban federal employees from gambling? It's an absurd proposition. You can claim this is for insider trading purposes, but banning them from all forms of prediction betting is just to prevent them from doing insider trading is ridiculous overreach. There's already bans on insider trading, including the insider trading on prediction markets for the economy. We can agree that they don't really enforce this though, and there are ways to achieve what we would be trying to achieve with this that don't limit what 2.2 million federal employees can do in their free time. The best way that we could get rid of these is remove the House Ethics Committee and create an independent ethics enforcement agency that the head of which is elected and not appointed to limit the bias as much as possible. But obviously, that's an unlikely and unrealistic proposition because it would require a addition to the Constitution, and we're not going to get that anytime soon. Alternatively, we can but we could require all elected and appointed officials to put their assets in a blind trust while they hold office. That is the most realistic thing that we could do, and that we can require and should require. Another important aspect of this is that banning things like this just drive it underground. So instead of stopping people like Nancy Pelosi from doing sketchy shit in the stock market, we just get Nancy Pelosi doing sketchy shit in the stock market without the disclosure of what she's doing. Which is why, if you value government transparency, we shouldn't want this. Why should we want to make it easier for the government to hide what they are doing? The biggest thing here, though, is why should we prevent regular federal employees from betting in prediction markets? If a postal worker wants to bet on the election and bet on companies' futures or bet on their favorite sports team, we shouldn't be in the wallet of 2.2 million federal employees telling them what they can and can't spend their money on. And if they get rich off of doing it, they can quit their shitty underpaid jobs. So good for them. And I see the rest of my time.
All right. So we are now going to go back over to you, Testy. So whenever you are ready, we're going to go ahead and doink. Going to go ahead and have you cross-examine Vigi. So 3 minutes is on the clock. I'll start when you start.
Sure. I have a small favor to ask. I have a list of questions brought up here. Could you possibly actually, you know what? I'll rearrange my windows here so I can see the timer. That's on me. Okay.
Cheers. And again, I won't start the clock till you start.
Okay. So, whoops. God damn it. What did I do? Sorry. 2 seconds. Alrighty. So Vigi, just so we can kind of find some common ground here at a basic level, do you agree that there are at least some cases where it would be inappropriate for a federal employee to bet on the prediction market? Are there examples that you could think of?
I would, generally speaking, I would say just like elected and appointed officials, and only that.
So when you say elected and appointed, do you mean like betting on the outcomes of elections, or?
No, I mean like the only federal employees I would say.
Oh, I see. To who it applies to.
Yeah, are the ones that are appointed and ones who are elected. Anybody other than that, I don't see a actual point to it.
Okay. So So would you say that at least from the, I guess the outside looking in, so from the public looking at this, would you at least agree that that it's not clear to the public whether something can be a lucky bet or whether it's a well-timed insider bet? Do you think that there's an appearance of malfeasance, even if there may not be?
Not necessarily. I'm pretty sure most people just assume somebody got lucky unless who made the bet is actually disclosed. We could think of examples of this, like with the GameStop stuff, where they were trying to fucking tank GameStop by shorting it in the stock market, doing shorting bets. And a bunch of like big name people were betting on that, and including some Congress people. And then they end up losing a fuckload of money because of, well, the internet.
Okay, I got a quick two-part question. So, I think you had mentioned this in your opening. So, would you advocate for maybe something like just better disclosure, like better transparency, or is that something you do think it's sort of okay as it is?
Better transparency. Like my main focus whenever it comes to like reforming the financials of people elected and appointed officials is primarily transparency, and then the fact that I don't necessarily think while they're in office they should have any control of their money at all. I think their money should be put into blind trusts.
Okay. So sorry. Trades. Okay, applying trust. Sorry, I'm just making a note of that here. I'm just having 30 seconds. I could throw another one there. Let's see. Um, so just to be clear, I want to kind of drive this point home. Do you think that? Well, you say you don't necessarily think it leads to the impropriety or like a looks like something wrong is happening. Do you think at the very least that this could erode public trust in institutions? Do you think that the appearance of corruption can do this?
Not with futures betting. I think the insider trading stuff for the most part is what does that. Which and the reason for that is because the House pretty much has control on whether or not those ethics things are actually enforced, and the House doesn't actually enforce them.
Y'all just go ahead and keep rolling into the open conversation.
Sure. So one of the things you brought up was possibly an ethics board, and you said that 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 wouldn't happen because of the Constitution, all of these things. Even just kind of at the end there, you mentioned how the House doesn't really, I guess, do its job, quote unquote. It sounds like you're sort of tacitly admitting that there is a problem, at least that needs to be addressed. But when I asked you some of these clarifying questions, I think the main one being the first one there, where if you would agree that maybe there are some cases, and you did say for elected and appointed officials, but so you're limiting your scope specifically to those people when any federal employee
Mm-hmm.
could access information. Um, I can give you an example, and why I would even say for janitors or maybe people who work at whatever these other places, lower level people. Um, there are interdepartmental, interagencies issues. Sometimes things will go through one department before another. It doesn't have to be stealing a classified document. It could just be having the foreknowledge, maybe hours before something happens. It could be seeing just a memo or an email chain that makes it by you, right? So I don't think that the barrier is very high, and I think that's why I would put much more scrutiny on beyond just people who are elected or appointed.
Yeah, but I mean, with anybody, I mean, with doing this kind of thing in general, it's still kind of more a innocent till proven guilty type of thing. You're just kind of assuming that the people that are making these lucky bets are people who have insider knowledge. When we, because of the fact that for the most part they're undisclosed, we don't have any proof of that.
I agree on its face, and I think one of the things I said in my opening is I think the what I would view as the problem, which you seem to disagree with, is I think that there is something to be said about optics. When I'm talking about things like integrity and public trust, even the appearance that something corrupt is happening is enough to corrode public trust. And so
Yeah, but I
even if
mean,
and
we're talking about gambling. We're basically just talking about gambling, though. Like the gambling in
so there's
general
different types of
erodes the trust
so
of an
there's
institution. Like
gambling.
we can look at sports betting here, and sports betting, like when we look at sports betting, like because of the higher influence of casinos and stuff in sports betting, people now believe like the MLB is rigged. They believe the NFL is rigged. They would believe the NBA is rigged.
Sure.
Like
Sure,
this happens in general just because of gambling.
right. Well, so I would say there's a massive difference between somebody, even if it is rigged. I would say there's a massive difference between somebody thinking that a sports game is rigged versus real world events where you're monetizing your proximity to government power. So some of the examples I brought up, for example, or one of the examples, sorry, the easiest one that comes off the top of my head is the $400,000 that somebody made off Polymarket when Nicolas Maduro was arrested, and this bet was made, I believe, hours before this had happened. Another example is before Iran was bombed, literally within hours, 6 separate Polymarket accounts made $1.2 million. So I think that it seems like a lot of smoke for no fire. And when we're saying we don't know who it is, I understand prediction markets can be linked back to the original person. They're pseudo-anonymous, so there's wallets, and then there's sort of a chain that you can follow. If the government really decides to, they could subpoena, they could maybe try to access these records, find out who made these trades. There doesn't seem to be that much interest in doing that. And I'm just going to tie that in really quick with what I said before about administrative costs to try to micro police all of these separate things because we don't know if it's somebody who's right next to Trump or we don't know if it's some pencil pusher down below. All of these people work with sensitive information, right? Or potentially come across sensitive information. And so I think that there's a higher burden that is placed on them. And one of the reasons why it's cleaner, again, cleaner just to not allow them to participate in these markets. It's more than just gambling,
Well, I
I guess
mean,
is what I'm saying.
here's the thing, like even if say we did your proposition, we would still get these lucky bets because like here's the thing, like even if this is insider trading, which is it would be enforceable and they could still go to jail if we actually had an enforcement mechanism for it because insider trading in general is already illegal, and that's what this would be. But the reason why we don't have that enforcement is because that enforcement is one left up to the FBI, two is left up to the House Ethics Committee. And nobody's going to investigate the government because we don't have anybody to investigate the government. I mean, we can see this with a lot of different things that have happened. We know of a lot of Congress people who do insider trading in the stock market, and including like the famous example that the right always likes to bring up, being Nancy Pelosi. There's so many. The issue here isn't like the access in general; it's the fact that it's not enforced.
Well, sure, but it's one of those things where it sounds a little bit like, well, we've tried nothing and nothing can be done. I mean, in the case of these things, we're saying, well, the principle that I'm laying out is that something should be done, something ought to be done about these things, as opposed to again, it sounds like you're ceding a little bit that you're saying that there is a problem that even you're identifying here that does exist. So if you're saying, well, it's not properly enforced, I can agree with you on that front, right? So I'm advocating that these things shouldn't be allowed, and I know there's a little bit of cross between prediction markets versus stocks, right? But I would also agree with the stock trading. I do think that there are examples where people sit on boards, security boards and things, and they've made stock trades. And yes, there is some quote unquote disclosure that these things are publicly accessible, but there doesn't seem to be consequences. And so again, I think a cleaner option is just to not give them the option. And because again, even if things are above board and they're just great at predicting these events or whatever it may be, the appearance
No,
of
but like
corruption
the
is the
the
issue.
the the thing that you're missing here is the fact that them doing that is already illegal. The problem is we don't enforce it
So
because
there's
the people who are meant to enforce that are is the government. Like we don't have any oversight of the government, and that's the
sure.
problem.
So what we're talking on kind of both sides of the coin, right? So I'm talking more about a prophylactic type of step where we do something before the corruption is allowed. And I think I highlighted some of the issues. I think good ethics standards prevent abuse before they happen. And so I said, like judges recusing themselves, for example, there are anti-nepotism laws where we recognize that something can be ripe for abuse, and that's why we're trying to address it before the abuse can happen, as opposed to something has happened, now it has to be investigated. Now we have to prove what did they know, when did they know it, was it passed off through a family member? I know there's things with Pelosi, right? There were trades by her husband. People, and because the alternate line is, well, it's not going to stop them. What happens to them reaching out to their cousin or a friend, right? But just because
Mhm.
people will circumvent these things and try to get around them is not a reason not to try to enforce strong ethics standards to prevent them from abusing them.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, like when we're when we put these rules in place, like even say I grant that, and like we put this rule into place, it's not going to be enforced because of the mechanisms of enforcement. Like so, there's some great examples here with fucking the uh different people in Congress and different people in the government who have like or their family members have gotten caught doing or dealing drugs and then they just like don't go to jail. The issue here is not like that laws don't exist. It's that when you're talking about the government, the way the government works currently at least, the government is effectively above the law.
I agree. I feel like we're describing the same issue that we're both seeing, and we simply have different approaches to it. And so, what I want to do is, I'm not sort of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? I feel like that there are moments for nuance, right? Like if you were to come to me, and I guess I'm trying to make a little bit of an olive branch, and I'm saying, sure, if the category that these people the federal employees are restricted to is only sports betting, I mentioned some issues that could potentially arise, but let's say it's something innocuous, right? It's not related to real world events that are happening. It's not the price of oil. It's not, is the US going to take Carg Island? It's not things that affect people's lives in a that deeply affect people's lives in a negative way. I might be more amicable to that because I agree that that does fall more on the side of simply gambling. But when we're talking about events that affect people in the real world, I think that having people in government who are not profiting, there's no perverse incentive, sorry, for them to be able to exploit real world events. I put that at such a high bar, and it's I don't want to gish gallop, but it's similar for people who are maybe police officers or people who work in the medical field. There are certain expectations when you have a certain job that you are expected to abide by, and so I would simply say that this would be part of their job. They're not being deprived of something. It's because we're putting trust into them that we have this high bar in the first place.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, we like say the example you used with like the Maduro arrest thing. Like, even if that was some random like federal employee, which it probably wasn't. It was probably some random dude who just got lucky. Um, like like if it's some random person at the Pentagon, who fucking cares? Like genuinely, who cares? Like if it's not some like actually elected official, we shouldn't care. Like these people, like yeah, they might have some more inside information, but like they're working really shitty jobs that they're most of them are getting underpaid for. So if they get a chance to actually make some real money off of like a lucky bet that they already had information about, who cares? Seriously.
Oh, sorry, horseradish. Is the timer still going?
Well, sorry, you guys, you didn't know this, but
No,
I
no,
have the
I'm totally
ability
good.
to add up to 5 minutes.
Oh, okay,
If you
okay. My
guys are in the
mistake.
middle of a thought or in the
I'm
middle
more
of,
than happy to. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
more than happy to keep
keep
going.
going.
Sure. So, well, I said in my opening statement. So it sounds with that last little bit. I mean, I feel like you're ceding to basically that some corruption is okay, or that well, they like because we're saying, well, you're kind of maybe not quite speaking out both sides of your mouth, but you're saying, well, if it's some low.
Yeah, so you're talking about like how basically saying some level of corruption is okay. Which I mean to a degree that I am saying like some level of what you would consider corruption, uh, like whenever we're talking about the people who don't actually have power to make decisions, yeah, sure. Who actually cares? It's the people that can actually make the decisions that the corruption matters. If you can't make decisions, you being a little bit corrupt outside of like law enforcement, it doesn't matter.
All right, that was the point we wanted to make. Good stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and leave it here for the judge's questions. Well, we're going to in a second here. So Judges, do you guys have, and I know y'all were trying to pay attention there. Judges, do you guys have questions for, we're going to start with the AF, so Testes. Do you have a question for Testes? All right, looks like Tyler, you're already ready first. So go ahead and hit Testes with your question, please.
All right, so since your ethical argument right now is kind of in the lead, I feel like it hasn't been addressed properly. I'm going to be a bit tougher on you with my question. Just because I like to see a nice fair debate that gets as close to even as possible.
Okay.
So, when Vidge was doing cross with you, he asked you about just banning the specific type of bets you wanted. The only question from cross that I thought really accomplished anything. He asked you, what kind of bets do you want to ban? Your response is, I don't want to ban those specific types of bets. That would be over-regulation. But your prescription here is to completely do pre-crime, essentially. Assume that these people are all borderline criminals just waiting for their opportunity to steal or deface the government or commit fraud in some way or blah, blah, blah. And you're essentially policing them to the point where they're not even allowed to participate in fully legal activities because they're potentially guilty actors. How is yours not significantly more regulatory and over-policing if his suggestion is just to ban some bad bets?
So I ground this in the overall principle that I'm sort of coming at this from, which is that especially with public office or people working for the federal government, I think that the image of corruption is almost just as important as if there is actually corruption. So I don't see this as a punitive thing. I would say that another example, which I had brought up as well, would be that if you want to call it pre-crime, there are ethics standards with things where judges have to recuse themselves. There's anti-nepotism rules, there are disclosure rules, and these are designed to address things before they become an issue. So I would say that, yeah, it's not punishing, I guess, law-abiding people. It's sort of like one asshole drinks in the park and gets drunk, and now none of us can drink in the park. So, yeah.
Stuff. So I meant to put 1 minute on the clock, not 3 minutes, so that was perfect. All right, now LetsChief, do you also have a question ready?
Give me a second just to put it together.
Yep, no worries. And it looks like everything's working again, so fucking huzzah.
Hell yeah.
As long as nobody
All right.
leaves, nobody turns off their cameras, nobody mutes, nobody
Nobody
shits the bed. Nobody
move.
fucking move. Just hold your breath. All right, you ready, Chief?
Yeah. So Vigi made the point that it's already illegal. Tessie, do you agree with that perspective? And if so, how should enforcement be fixed?
Yeah, so we didn't quite get into this. I did cite some specific laws that this does apply to in my links in the side there. Where is it? So sorry, could you just ask the question again real quick? I got a little sidetracked.
So Vigi had kind of described that practice as already being illegal. Do you agree with that characterization? And if so, how should enforcement be fixed?
Oh, sure. So there are things that are illegal, like insider trading. Sort of the point I was making before is that it's sort of again the prophylactic, addressing it before it's an issue versus trying to prosecute and address what criminal activity happened after the fact. So I would say that there are some laws on the books that that do try to address some of these things. I would just say that they are currently inadequate. Does that answer your question?
All right. So, unfortunately, because I've been doing all of the tech stuff, I have not been able to prepare a question myself. So you guys are getting off easy. You're only getting 2 judges, one from each question, or one question from each judges. So we're gonna go ahead and head on over to Vigi now. Tyler, you got a question for Vigilante, please.
Yeah, so his affirmative argument on the practical level, you guys have addressed it. You've only even come to some sort of mutual conclusion on it. But where he's not being met at is on his ethical argument. The only time you've addressed that, I feel like, was saying because of lack of enforcement, no matter what we do isn't going to work, which is a practical argument, but it's not addressing him ethically. So I want to give you a chance to re-ask one of his questions and give you a chance just to answer it like straight up without any debate pressure. Should we not hold those in government to a higher standard where they have to give up actions that a normal person might be able to do because they might morally compromise their position in the government or their authority they retain as somebody in the government? My example was going to be drug tests and not allowing police officers to do drugs because they're in a field where they're arresting people for drugs and they could easily develop some sort of addiction. So we hold him to a higher standard. He used nepotism and other things like that with judges. We already kind of do what he's prescribing. So why would this one be uniquely bad?
Yeah, so more so it's the mechanism of how he wants to do it. I mentioned in my opening statement, the way that I would actually want to fix this, more so because like the only part where I actually see an ethical problem is like appointed and elected officials, which is why we kind of came to the agreement on that. I don't see any ethical problems with like the people who can't make a decision, being able to do this personally. But with elected and appointed officials specifically, the ones who actually can make the decisions, the solution that I would put in place instead of this is the requiring them to put their assets in a blind trust. This is something that's been talked about a lot for a while. I think it's even been proposed a couple times, but it hasn't gone through yet. And that is a better mechanism of enforcement, specifically for the people who are elected and appointed, that would actually achieve what he's trying to do.
Good stuff. LetsChief, minutes on the clock. Would you give him a question, please, sir?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you kind of described this as essentially just like gambling and kind of equated it to like sports betting?
Yeah, I equated them because they're effectively the same thing.
Cool. So employees of professional and collegiate sports teams are actually typically banned from betting on their own leagues. Could you maybe kind of like explain why that standard wouldn't apply to maybe politically influenced decisions on these markets, prediction markets?
So typically speaking, when we're talking about the people who are banned, the way, from my understanding with sports betting at least, the rules are specifically for the players and the coaches, which would effectively in this case be like the appointed officials and Congress. It doesn't apply to like the people that are working vending and the people who are working like the janitorial staff, things like that, because they have no effects on the game. And it's the same with like Congress. Like you could validly make the argument for why we shouldn't allow people in Congress, people appointed in different positions, like the director of the FBI or like Pete Hegseth in the Department of War. Like those types of people like should not be able to make these bets, but anybody below them that actually doesn't have any power to make decisions, it really does not matter, just like it doesn't matter if a janitorial staff bets on a sports game.
All right. So that is the Q&A section. Jesus, just so you know, I've already sent the invite. If you go over to your Twitch dashboard page, like where you can control stuff in Twitch, your stream, what's it called? Stream something or another. You will be able to
Is it invite guests under collaboration?
Stream Manager. No, if you go to stream, if you look under your, I think it's under your notifications on Twitch, you'll see the invite.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to just click it and say, yes, please. All right. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and head back over here. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. We're going to go back to you, Testies. Again, I appreciate you guys. You guys have been sort of our guinea pigs here. Appreciate y'all's patience while we're figuring this out. But 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, for your closing. Are you ready to do that there, Testies?
Yep. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm just great. Okay, I can see the timer. I'll bring you up into the big screen. And yeah, I think I'm ready to go.
All right, cheers. I'll start the clock when you start to talk, bud.
Alrighty. So sure, I'll start my closing by just addressing some of the final points there that Vigi got across. One of them was, which was a bit surprising to me, is about the lower level employees, or he said that these should apply to elected officials and people who are appointed. I think my overall sort of thesis throughout this has been that I think from the public's perspective, it doesn't matter. If I hear $400,000, somebody got that money, I'm not splitting hairs on who it was. If it was a janitorial staff and somebody threw out a document and they managed to come across it and they gleaned some sort of information. If it was an email chain, I think that to the point about police officers, people who are medical professionals, depending on what your line of work is, there are certain expectations. And I do think that even the solution of the blind trust, to extend this, because again, I think it should apply to all federal employees, is I don't think that most federal employees would have the option of a blind trust. It does feel a bit idealistic. I do understand that part of his issue is the enforcement mechanism is not sufficient, and I would agree with that. And so I think that what you end up doing is you add more administrative oversight. It's actually more taxing to try and investigate these sort of microcosms and who knew what, when did they know it? Are they predicting just because they're smart, good at guessing? And I think one of the things I have to address as well is why it's not like gambling, or it's not even like trading stocks. So with stocks, there's an outcome, right? With this, you're betting on events, and events can be manipulated before the fact, right? I mean, obviously, stocks can, if you have insider knowledge, which is illegal, you can guess, you can know if a stock is going to go up or down. This is also a source of controversy. I would say that we've seen certain suspicious trades happen before Trump posts on his Truth Social or makes some sort of speech. However, when we're talking about real world events and people profiting off of those things, there can be horrific consequences. One of the things, unfortunately, I didn't have time to get to, but is worth mentioning, is that the Polymarket, this was today, this news came out. Polymarket got slammed and they had to take down a poll which was betting on whether or not the service member that is missing right now in Iran would be rescued. And so, again, didn't quite get to this, unfortunately, but there is also deep moral implications to these things. I would feel uncomfortable with anybody betting on these things, and I'm not trying to introduce new information, but I think especially in the context of federal employees, again, I think that integrity and the perception of honesty is vitally important to maintaining trust in institutions. And yeah, that's why I would place that above, and I think that why it would be irresponsible to allow federal employees to gamble on world events, basically.
Stuff. All right. Vigilante, 3 minutes is going on the clock now for you. Start your closing. Are you ready? All right, cheers. Clock starts when you do.
Yeah. So, I mean, the main thing here is you've talked a lot about the appearance. Well, even with like if we put this law into place, the appearance wouldn't change. If people accurately guess this stuff, the appearance would still be there. The problem is the lack of transparency whenever it comes to this kind of stuff, the lack of enforcement, and those are the primary problems here. Yeah, sure, we ban them, and then what happens when people still successfully make these big bets on world events right before they happen? We're just going to assume, like, if this is what we're assuming, that it's government officials, we're just going to assume it was a government official still doing it regardless. So what we need to do is, specifically with the people who actually make the decisions, because the people that actually make the decisions being able to bet on this stuff is the real problem here. We need to fix the enforcement mechanisms, because they're, realistically speaking, is not currently an enforcement mechanism. Yes, this would add administrative oversight, but in order to actually fix the problem of the appearance of corruption in this case, we have to increase administrative oversight over the government, because it currently does not have any administrative oversight. You could claim that the FBI is administrative oversight, but it's not. It doesn't actually enforce laws whenever it comes to people who are actively in government. You can see this with insider trading. As far as the reason why I was talking about the stock trade and insider trading is because whenever it comes to insider trading in the stock trade, doing prediction bets as an elected official when you have insider information is considered insider trading. It is illegal for them to do that because it is insider trading. Now, the thing is, when we talk about, you kind of alluded to it's not really gambling, but it is gambling. It is gambling on whether or not a world event is going to happen. It's the same thing as sports betting. It's just doing it on elections. It's doing it on world events. It operates the exact same way. The odd, whether or not the odds of something are going to happen is based off of the amount of people placing bets on whether an event is going to happen or not. So like when we look at how sports betting works specifically, the way that the casinos determine odds is based off of the amount of people placing bets on one team winning. It works. It is functionally the same, but that's besides the point. In order to fix this, we actually need to increase oversight. We don't need to add another bullshit law that's not going to get enforced.
All right. Good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and give it a couple of seconds while I drop the link for the voting into the chat. This is going to be in the shared chat. So everybody who's streaming on Twitch, you already got it. LetsChief, if you would scoop that up and put it into the room chat for everybody over there on YouTube, that would be super dope as well. Audience, I am asking you to please weigh in on who you think was the best debater, not necessarily who you agree with, not who you like the most, not which position feels the best to click. We have, again, Testes Johnson on the affirmative, and we have Vigilante TV on the negative. Vote for who you think presented the best case tonight. Costs you nothing. Just click that link. You'll be able to put it in the vote. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to do that while the judges are rendering their votes. And then we will go back to your votes after the fact. Oftentimes it means that you're either a tiebreaker or, just for show. But it does matter for the rankings. So please click that link and vote. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and head on over to our judges. I'm not sure who wants to go first, so we'll just start from the left today. Chief, are you ready, sir? I will take that as a no. Tyler, are you ready?
Go for it.
All right, cool. Tyler, where did you land on this? Remember, it's a 10-point scale.
Okay, so the closings actually shifted it from a 7-3 to a 6-4. It was in favor of Testy Johnson, even though I would have rather voted for Vidge on this one. I got some critiques here.
Okay,
So
real quick. You said it was your final was 6-4?
It was 6-4 in favor of the Aff.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I got some critiques here. Testy, for you, I'll start because it's a little shorter. Your cross was a complete waste of time. I actually suggested the horse at one point that we need to go over with people how to use cross properly, because you asked 3-4 questions we already had the answers to. It was like 3 minutes of just making him reiterate things he already said. Also, I would have liked a couple more real world examples. You were making your argument about your ethical system, and when I asked you your question, you brought up a couple examples, but you weren't using them in the argument. I really liked when you brought up transparency, which was just quick, but you used transparency as an example. We don't expect private businesses to show us all of their details. We do this for government because it sets up a standard that the government's not doing anything wrong, because they just show us everything up front. Because these are government employees, because these are government workers, they hold a higher standard that we set for them. So if you would have used a couple more real world examples outside of just my question, I would have liked it more, but overall I think you took that. Vidge, you met him on the practical level, and he conceded the argument about how the policing needs to be better no matter what the system is, or we're not going to see results. He conceded that, and it didn't hurt his argument. It seemed to me like you were arguing this more like an Aff versus an Aff. You were giving your ideal system. This is why we don't need to go as far as him. but you weren't telling me why his ethical argument was necessarily wrong. You were just saying it was unnecessary. I never really heard a coherent argument as to why his system was something we shouldn't do. You're just like, here's my alternative and here's why it would work better. And you could be right. You made a lot of good points on it. You were talking about how we should focus higher on higher impact. The larger the impact, if somebody's in a higher position of power, that's what really matters. That to some degree is absolutely right. You were talking about how enforcement mechanisms need to be in place for any system to function. And you were right, and he agreed to both of those points. But I just never heard, and I tried to tee up for this with your question, I never heard anything sufficient as to why his ethical argument was incorrect. And just because he's the Aff, and it's your job to take that argument down, you didn't get it.
All right, so 6-4 for the Aff. LetsChief. Where are you at, sir?
I had scored things the same way, 6-4 for the Aff.
Okay.
Again, I felt like the closings did make it pretty close for me. Like Vigi did kind of bring it back in the closing, so I did appreciate him making a strong showing in the closing. But both had really good points on either side for Testy, just like the preservation of our institutions, not eroding public trust. The trouble with monetizing proximity to government power, like as a whole. Unlike Tyler, I feel like Testy did bring a lot of examples, like he was talking about Maduro and Iran, the service members. So I feel like there was a decent amount of like real world like examples of another good point that he brought up being the events that can be manipulated before the fact. For Vigi, I felt like it was a great point to bring up that like essentially you're just arguing for the government to be in the wallet of 2.2 million federal employees. Like that was a great argument. Pointing out the difference that like insider trading is not the same as prediction markets, and insider trading is already illegal, and that needs just better enforcement. I do agree with Tyler that when that was addressed, it didn't really hurt the other side, but maybe there was like another angle to be taken there. Maybe if we would have went deeper into what that enforcement being fixed looks like and how easy of a change it was to demonstrate the lack of a need to ban federal employees, like maybe that would had played a little bit better. Um, and then just, it felt like a little bit wishy-washy when we were talking about like, the problem is really just enforcement, but also depending on your role, like there may or may not be a point at which like hearing this insider information like doesn't matter because you're just a low man on the totem pole, and it just felt like a little inconsistent. But overall, I felt like you both did a great job bringing like really supporting your arguments. And yeah, 6-4 Aff.
All right. Cheers. Well, in that case, the only thing left for us to do is to go ahead and head on over here and see what the audience felt. So let's take a look. Federal employees should be banned. Results. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in whenever 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, fuck. That was a 9-1 vote for the audience. Yeah. Okay. So 9-1 for the Aff. Testes, that is a 3-vote shutout. Great job for your first showing, my friend. Sorry, Vigilante, you did a great job, man. You definitely tried. I don't always make this excuse for everybody, but I will say the Vigilante did slide in last minute for me for Gorps to cover, and this was actually a prompt that he didn't have a strong opinion on. So again, I only give so much excuse, but he was short notice and didn't actually feel the prompt, so he was steel manning for me. So I appreciate you showing up, Vigi, and I appreciate you doing your best, buddy. All right, so let's see if this is going to move smoothly into the second prompt, because next we have, boom, we have Emmet going against Casey Lee on the military-industrial complex should be nationalized. I went ahead and put the AF and the Neg up there above people's names, above people's so y'all can see and sort of get a better idea. But the AF's always going to be on the left, whatever. But that said, this time our prompt again: the military-industrial complex should be nationalized. Emmett, you got to see what more or less one is supposed to look like. Do you have any questions before we kick this off, sir?
Nope.
Cheers.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Well, then in that case, Casey Lee, 3 minutes is on the clock, my friend. Whenever you are ready, the mic is all yours.
The status quo in America is a several tier justice system, one for the rich and the connected, and the other is for you and yours. Exactly what crime would the defense contractors break where we would have a reasonable expectation of an investigation and charges when even some ties to CIA is enough to get a pass for literally raping American children, no cap, full stop. The first level of corruption is the classic. Lobby pays congressman, congressman pays company, company pays lobby, and the money goes around and around and around, and taxpayers lose. Notably, comically, IPAC pushed Congress to purchase Israeli air defense systems. Military did not. Military tested them and said they sucked and they had better stuff. Congress passes another bill in 2020. With the bill states explicitly that that the army must use them. Great use of taxpayer dollar. October 7th happens, and the army says, "Oh, here you go. You're gonna need these." Maybe gives Israel back their air defense systems for free. That's cool. Though the corruption involving defense contractors is much more ingrained than the usual congressional earmarks. It isn't the Congress that usually decides what is being purchased, after all, when it comes to military weapons. It is, in fact, random or sometimes not random. DoD spooks often moving in and out of those companies' executive positions just to go back and do another stint at the DoD, and back and around we go. Researchers from watchdog groups like the Project of Government Oversight and others note that track each year hundreds of individuals moving back and forth each year between private defense contractors and the Pentagon or other government positions. In 2016, they note 645 cases involving quote revolving door hires. And now, when, for example, a former defense executive becomes Deputy Secretary of Defense, they are now in charge of managing and purchasing the weapons for the companies that they quote unquote used to work for. And let's be real, will be hired back at some point later. Imagine if you can, this is moving on to another point slightly. Imagine if you can that your country, your defense contractors are selling to whoever they want, and a weak but and paid for Congress with already virtually no oversight on this does nothing. And combine that with the aforementioned issue of accountability, and what you get is Visacom. In 2019, the Navy SEALs needed 450 highly specialized radio antennas. They specifically required a model made by a specific company. The contract didn't go to that company, but instead to Pentagon connected insiders who turned around to simply upload the sensitive military blueprints to Chinese manufacturers' web portal and ordered knockoffs at the cost of $6 each. Despite committing literal treason, over 6 years of litigation, and Visacom was fined $300,000. The company has done over $30 million in government contracts. When literal treason happens, there is no expectation for individuals to be blamed. Oh, heavens, no. There is little expectation for actual repercussions to the companies, even at this point.
All
That
right.
is today. That is now.
So I gave you an extra 30 seconds.
Nationalize.
We went a little
Okay.
over there, Casey. That's all right. So I'm now
Nationalize.
I'm now going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock again. This time, Emmett, it's for you to go ahead and cross-examine, ask questions, kind of set up. You can either set up questions to knock it down or set up questions to set yourself up as you see fit. So I'll start the clock when you ask your first question.
So, first of all, thank you for having me on, and I'm gonna start the cross. When it comes to moral the moral, when you're so oh, this is so bad. That doesn't matter to me. It makes no sense. So you're trying to get, because you're saying that we should go ahead and get these companies to be part of the government. How is it giving more to the government will be less corruption?
You take out the profit structure. The companies don't have profit, so there's no one raking in the dough from taxpayers. You take out the profit
Okay, so
structure.
if that is the case, that would mean that the more government we have, the less spending we would see, right?
We would have we the companies that we hired wouldn't be raking us for their profits, because there would be no profit,
So
because
there
there
wouldn't
wouldn't
be
be a
companies that we
for-profit
hire. We
business.
just go ahead and take whatever they have, and we're just gonna spend more money of our taxpayers on them, right?
We're already getting grossly overcharged for nearly all the things.
Okay,
So we'd be
let's say that
spending
that is correct.
undoubtedly less. Okay.
Let's say that that is correct. Wouldn't that be a government inefficiency? Like wouldn't be a problem of the government that they are getting overcharged? How is it that giving the government more power would mean that these will solve the issue of the government not doing their duty?
They already have the power. They're just using it to make profits for their friends or for companies that they in fact actually pseudo work for. It's the
Oh,
it's
that's
the
correct. Yeah, well, that would be correct in your worldview, right? But you said that they were
That's just
committing
factually
treason,
correct.
and that you said that they're
Mhm.
committing treason right now. They're doing absolutely nothing. So you want to give them all the power of all these companies to a bunch of
Hold on.
dudes that are doing absolutely nothing when it comes to treason?
When a company is given U.S. military like antenna, like a highly specialized stuff that our enemies aren't allowed to see, we literally ship that. We send that to a Chinese company to have them make $6 ripoffs. Like, how is that not treason? I was
Yeah,
sending
I agree with you. They should all be in
okay.
jail, but why should I give it to the people that are not even putting them in treason?
Right. I'm saying
Yeah,
that there'll be different
if they
people.
should be
That there'll
if
be
they should
different
be.
people in there when they're not making when they're not themselves making money by this
Yeah, if they
system.
let's say that just the 20 seconds real quickly. If let's say that the government should put them to play with the trees and they're not doing that, why should we give them more power to the people that are not doing their job?
Right. When you remove the profit structure, you also remove the corrupt individuals who are there for that profit structure.
Uh,
All right, that's perfect.
Thank
Landed
you.
it right on the button. 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, Emmett. That is your time to open, sir. Go ahead and start it whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, the reality of the thing is that when I was thinking about what kind of argumentation I was going to make, once we're going to go for, I immediately realized that the first thing that we're going to talk is about corruption. And oddly enough, whenever we talk about the government has a specific role. The role of the government is to be the force, the enforcer, okay? And to do the enforcement, they were going to have to use all kind of the most amazing and advanced capacity they have in order to use force. In this case, planes, guns, anything they want. That's all they have. That in and of itself is going to be a little bit of corruption in there because the government is not there to create anything. They're not there to do anything. They can't. All they have is a cudgel and they're going to hit you on the head with it. Okay? That's their capacity. So I could go to the whole thing of, well, the government cannot create, they cannot innovate. If you go to Venezuela or China or anybody, all they do is rip off, or in the case of Venezuela, died of hunger, one of the two. So I don't want to be a communist country. I don't want to be part of the communists that all they do is pretty much die of hunger. What I want is to be able to create the most amazing thing. And the only way to do it is by allowing the individuals to create companies so that they can do it. They can innovate, they can do all these kind of things. But that's not even the problem. The problem is that every time we see a government create a structure, this structure is going to tend towards corruption. So Casey is saying, you know what? Let's give all of these companies to the government that tends towards corruption to fix the corruption that we have in the government. It's a complete non sequitur. It makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand how is it possible that we, after 2,000 years at least, we have seen these kind of horrible implications of letting the government overreach because they become corrupt. We still trying to get the government to overreach and become way more corrupt. And we see it every single time. Democrats and Republicans do it. They create structures in which we're going to see a bunch. We're gonna see bureaucracy appear, and every single time in those kind of bureaucracies, we're gonna see nepotism. We're gonna see people that are not supposed to be there, ranking millions of dollars. And you know what is the worst part? When they're part of the government, they cannot even go bankrupt. We are stuck with them. We have to save them every time. We have to give them more and more money because they cannot. They're part of the government. What are they gonna do? Stop taxing us? So I'm gonna end up in this. I think it's a completely non sequitur, giving more power to the same people not doing the duty because of corruption to avoid corruption is completely nonsensical. It's P and not P at the same time. Thank you.
All right. 3 minutes now is on the clock for you. What a great face to come back to. Casey, 3 minutes is on the clock for you to go ahead and cross-examine. I'll start the clock when you do.
Why can't the governments create stuff?
Well, let me put it this way: when you go and see the structure of the economic system, the way that the government exists is only through force, and all they do is enforcement. So they become corrupt. That's why they cannot create.
Is NASA, is that enforcement? Is NASA enforcement?
Yes, they do it through enforcement. The reason why is because they do it through your taxpayer money. What happens if you don't pay your taxes?
How is going to the moon enforcement?
They do it through the capacity. They do it to you paying your taxes. So if you don't pay your taxes, they're gonna come to you, enforce it, and put you in jail or take away the money.
Right, but you didn't say that you said they only do this and they never create things. So I'm pointing to an instance where they created things, and I'm asking why isn't that them creating things?
Because they're not creating what NASA does and what NASA has done is they pretty much take all of the they outsource all of the minds to the universities, and the best of the minds in the universities go back to NASA. It's a synergistic system, and still NASA is a corrupt institution. This is what I'm saying. We have already these kind of institutions that have been corrupted and are corrupt, and even though we can find in some cases they can kind of work, because we still need to have the private sector. They all work in the private sector in the sense that they work in the universities.
If you're an engineer and you work for a government or you work for a corporation, why isn't you just doing your own? Why is your engineering different? How is your engineering different?
Well,
because
if you're
of
an
the name
engineer
of
and you're
the-
working, yeah, let me explain. If you're an engineer and you're working for one of the companies outside, and you fail and it goes bankrupt, it's your fault. So you have a responsibility to be the best that you can. If you fail in a government institution, well, and I guess the taxpayers can pick it up.
No, an engineer.
Yeah, exactly. If you fail as an engineer, let's say that you destroy 10 rockets and that would have destroyed NASA. In reality, it doesn't destroy NASA because it's part of the government. So they can, taxpayer, can you speak it up?
Yeah, and what happens with very large companies in the U.S. Go bankrupt? Like banks,
It
for
would depend on
example.
it would
What do you
depend,
think
right?
would
But I would
happen
say
if
that is
Boeing?
corruption.
What do you think would happen if Boeing was going to go bankrupt?
Yeah, I
They
would
make a
say
lot
that
of
is
our fighter
corruption.
planes.
I would say that is
No,
corruption.
what do you think would happen? You think
They
they
would be
let it
bailed out, and I would say that is corruption.
Correct. So it's
Yeah.
not really capitalism, is it?
I never said that this is capitalism.
Well, that would be if it's not the government like making stuff, and then the opposite is like the benefit would be like some
That
sort of
would be
market system or whatever. But I'm saying it's not the
No,
market
I
system
get
anyway,
it, but
is it?
that would be corruption, wouldn't it be?
Absolutely.
So this is the thing that this is the thing that you're telling me right now. Hey, the government is corrupt. I want to give you more power, and I'm saying, why? Why do you want to give you more power? It's already
Okay,
corrupt.
what specifically was corrupt about NASA? Like not today NASA, but like going to the moon NASA.
So we go once again. The problem that we see is that it tends towards corruption. So every single
How did
time you have
NASA
these
tend
kind of
toward that?
institutions, they will go corrupt, and you agree to that. It's like right now NASA is corrupt. So
Mhm.
so that's
Yeah,
the
I'm
point. Or do
debating
you want to give it more
against.
power?
I'm debating against our current system. to a system we
I know you're
used to
debating
have.
against our current system by giving more power to our current system.
No. We revert the process where NASA wasn't corrupt, where NASA was inventing like all the things they created the batteries in all of our power tools. They created a lot of the
No,
electronics that we
that's
use
not
even
true.
today.
Again,
That's what's not true.
it's not true that they created all the power tools and all the batteries and all the
No.
things. That's not true. It's not
The
true.
type of
The
batteries
engineers.
that we use in power tools, that they designed those to go to the moon.
Yeah,
They had to make them
okay,
smaller.
let me pretend that that is the case. Is my
Okay.
computer designed by NASA right now? Are we using the same kind of technology that gave us to the moon?
No, I never said your computer was. But there's
Oh,
probably
perfect.
components in
Then
it. There's probably components in
great.
it, actually.
Then it's not only NASA, right?
Actually, the camera in your phone uses a CMOS image sensor. That is something NASA created.
You think that the camera on my phone was created by NASA?
I don't think, I know.
Okay. Let's say that I agree with you. All of it. I agree with everything you're saying. They were amazing and created all of these. Tell me, how is it possible that right now Boeing is working with NASA and they pretty much fucked up a mission?
Wait. Well, first of
Do
all,
you want to give more power to Boeing right now?
Today's NASA is different because today's NASA hires private
Yes.
companies like SpaceX to do shit and Boeing to
And
do
you
shit.
know what is
That's
the
what
coolest
I'm
part of
arguing
what you said
against.
to me? Yeah, you know what is the coolest part of what you said to me? That you agree with me that it tends towards corruption. So why you want to give it more power? Can you answer that question? If
No, I'm getting rid
government
of the
tends towards
corruption.
corruption, why do you want to give more power to the government?
Right. There's corrupt government and there's far less corrupt government or corruptible government.
Okay, show me one.
I want
Show me
to
one less
change
corrupt
to
government.
I'm saying no, I didn't say corrupt or not corrupt. I said more and less. And I said a
Yeah, show me
system
one less
like
corrupt
a
government that is
system like
applying.
NASA is much less
Perfect.
corruptible than the current system that we have for NASA,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
involves hiring other companies to do the work, overpaying them, by
perfect.
the way, grossly.
Perfect. You're the
To go to
affirmative
what,
in this
Mars?
case. So you should be able to show me a state right now that is less corrupt by using the kind of prescriptions that you're saying.
Yes, I'm saying today's NASA versus the NASA that actually did all of the work themselves and
Yeah.
didn't outsource. I'm arguing don't outsource. I'm saying
Yeah,
that these companies should be publicly owned. That's what I'm arguing
I-
for. We need to go back to that NASA, which
I
was less
grant-
corrupt and less corruptible.
I granted that in the past NASA was perfect, but it tends towards, corruption because now it's corrupt. So if that is the case, you should be able to show me right now a government that is not corrupt, that is doing the kind of policies that you say you want.
Why can't we look at a historic system?
No, I'm going to the
the one that we
history.
had
The
here,
history was
America.
NASA. NASA was not corrupt, but it tends towards. My argument is that it goes towards
less
corruption.
corrupt.
It's corrupt now. So if that is the case, right now you must have a country that you know of that is implementing this kind of communist policies that is not corrupt. Can you tell me one? Show me
I
one.
never said that it wasn't corrupt. I never said zero corrupt. I said I didn't
Less
say NASA
corrupt.
was zero corrupt. I didn't say the U.S. government was ever zero corrupt. I said less corrupt. Yeah, a lot of countries and systems are less corrupt than the U.S.
Can you tell me about one that is less corrupt in accordance to you? Like, show me how is it less corrupt?
Just as a country as a whole.
Of course, we're
Probably
talking about the whole. We're talking about the
Norway.
country as a whole. Norway.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah.
You okay?
Finland,
Fine.
those types of
Norway
shit,
is Norway a communist country?
I'm not arguing for communism.
Oh, I'm sorry, but if you want the government to have all the power when it comes to the structures, because that allows them
I
to
didn't
be
say
less
all the
corrupt,
power.
wouldn't that be communism?
Is having firefighters paid by taxpayers, is that communism?
No, because they're a specific
No.
industry, and I would say that
And
if
so
we
are
had
the
them,
defense
if
contractors.
I would say that if we had them as contractors, they would be less efficient. They would be way more efficient. Sorry.
That is one of the all-time failures in history. The richest man who possibly ever lived is highly debatable. Is ancient Rome, and he owned the firefighters, and they would show up, and buildings would be on fire, and they would literally start haggling. That
I
was
mean,
the fun. And
he
we learned
you're talking
from
about
that fucked
Crassus.
history.
Yeah.
I
Do
think
you know
so.
do you know what's the name of that guy?
You gotta remind me if you want.
Yeah, his name is
Casey.
Crassus. Okay, and Crassus became the most rich man in whole of Rome. So I don't think it was much of a failure for him. But anyway, let's
No,
move
not
on
a
from
failure
that.
for
Can you please
him.
tell me
A failure
of the
for
Norway
society.
space pro? Can you tell me about the Norway space program that is less corrupt at NASA?
Oh, I never said that. I don't know whose space program is less corrupt.
Well, you
I
said
never
that it was
said I could
not the
even.
full country, so I thought you were gonna go
I said
into
I can name some
equations.
countries.
We're gonna make them a little bit equalizers, right? So they must. If you're talking about Norway, and Norway is capable of having their space program, is less corrupt, so you should be able to show me their space program, right, and what they do.
I don't even know they have a space program. I never stated that they did.
So you have you have shown me absolutely no reason to believe you that there's
Yeah,
gonna be
the
less corrupt.
country
Yeah,
with a space
you're not.
program that's less corrupt than ours is ours 50 years ago.
That tend towards corruption because
So
it's
let's
part of the
go back
government,
to
right?
that system. Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I don't know if
battling
you can, but I cannot
corruption
turn
is
back
an
time.
ongoing process. You're never going to stop ever corruption. All of it. You have to pick and choose like what is less corruptible than other things.
Do you
There
have
is
a
no
way
on
to
or
turn
off.
back time so that we come back to the 50s?
Yeah, I do.
Because I would
Yeah, we
love to
just
be
answered
able to do that, but I
as
don't
far
think
as
it's possible
as
to
far as the
turn back time.
structure, the structure of our our military industrial complex. Yeah, I do. I do. We just
Yeah, you do?
design the system so it works more like it used to.
How did it used to work?
Less contractors, more like nationalized
Do you
industry
have any
doing
documents
work.
that show how many contractors they use, how they use them? Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, NASA.
Okay, okay. Do you know who is the first billionaire in American history?
Nope. Tell me.
It's the aviator guy. I don't remember his name right now. It's from a movie. One of his first things that he did, well, it's not for a movie. He's actually a real person. He was a germaphobe. Um, one of the things that he did was create planes for the American government. Was he a contractor in the past? It was about 50 years ago.
You tell me.
Now you tell me. I don't know. It's your claim is that in the past we didn't have contractors and that was better for us. But I mean, I just showed you there was actual contractors in the past working with the with the American government. So I'm not entirely sure if that's the way that it used to work, and we're going into this time machine back in time, or
No. Well, I gave NASA an example of like something we should aim towards. I believe that like the plane industry is probably
okay.
likely always been private, probably.
I agree with your belief because I have every time just to say I have a belief, I have to I agree that you have that belief. But do you have any way to show me that in the past it was less corrupt?
My example for a system that today sucks because it's corrupt and uses
Yeah, but no
contracts.
data, no information directly, just your idea of what was in the past because you believe in it.
What kind of data would you like? What is the measure of corruption?
Well, my measure of corruption is the more that we have government intervention, the more corrupt it's going to get. You have to show me that the more intervention from the government is not going to make it more corrupt. So if you have any data on that, I would love to see it.
Any data on what exactly? You could restate
On
that.
government intervention making things less corrupt.
Well, if there's no profit structure, then there's less incentive. And here we're just using logic. Then there's less incentive, and then the less possibility for the extraction of wealth.
Who told you there's no profit structure? In fact, the people
Where
working in there are getting profited by it, right? If you are a government official, would you be profiting by the fact that you're getting paid to be a government official?
Right, we're talking about the on the level of owning a business, of the profit of a company. That's what we're talking about.
Well,
Getting the profit of of having
I don't
things
know how many
cost three
business Bernie
times
Sanders
more
owns,
than
but I
they
think he has
should.
profited a bunch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump on in there. I let it roll a little bit over, just to see where you guys were going with that, but we're gonna go ahead and get into the Q&A section. So hopefully each of the judges has at least one question for each of y'all. Definitely enjoying the content here, and I'm pretty sure that they will. So judges, boink. Oh, that did something weird. Fuck me. Whatever. So judges. Let's fix that a little quicker. Sorry about that. Yeah. Do you guys have, I made you go first last time, Tyler, so so I'm going to look at you, Chief. Do you have a question ready for Casey?
Name.
Give me a sec.
All right. Should I go to Tyler first then?
If he's got it ready already.
Tyler, are you ready to
Otherwise,
cook?
I'll tee
All
one up.
right. Tyler, you're up first. Question for Casey, if you would, please.
All right, Casey. I again kind of want to make this lenient on you because I feel like I want a more even debate, and you need the helping hand at the moment here. So I don't take that as offensive, but you argue that government structure is not inherently corrupt. What is corrupt is the incentive system that you argue your
What?
steps would remove.
No. The first thing you said, I never said that. Or I always said
You argue the
we're looking at.
problem.
We're
Okay,
looking
well,
at
I'm
there's
asking
more
you a
corrupt,
question.
there's less corrupt.
Let me get the question out.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, you're arguing here that it's not government inherently that's causing this corruption. So his argument that more government doesn't mean more corruption, your rebuttal is, no, we're removing the incentive structure. So more government wouldn't necessarily mean more corruption because those people would filter themselves out. Emmett's response to this, which I feel is unaddressed right now, is that no, we're not removing the incentive structure. We're taking it from the private markets to the taxpayer, where now they're not going to be able to go bankrupt. Now they're not going to get fired. They're going to be able to fail up in government, as we often see, and spend taxpayer money on things that go nowhere and could potentially be corrupt. So, with that argument out there, I just wanted to give you a chance to directly respond
Well,
to it.
why would a system that the government is paying for, that there is no one that owns that business, that or whatever, because it's not the business, why would it produce bad things, and why would it try to skimp on, for example, antennas, or why would it fuck up the poop pipes in an aircraft carrier trying to save money? Like it wouldn't. The thing that you said was wrong. Yeah, was that that because it would be part of the government, then therefore it would have the same problems, but it actually solves a lot of problems. If you don't have like an actual like free market, if it's not something like four companies are making like B-52s or B-2s or whatever, then you don't have any of the benefits of a market system. You only have a de facto monopoly, and in this case the people who own that monopoly are going in and out of the positions who pay the price for the monopoly's goods. They everything is inherently, in this case, there's no way that the things they're purchasing are actually what they're worth, what they're paying for. We're overpaying for everything.
All right. Good stuff. And now over to you, LetsChief. You have a question for Casey ready.
Yeah. So you mentioned like revolving door hires being a problem where people went from government to private sector to government. How would that problem be addressed by eliminating the step of private sector and then just staying like in that same government circle?
Right. The problem is with when they get out of the Pentagon and they're hired as executive of Raytheon. Like the money that they're getting is is literally tens of millions of dollars, and they're not getting it because they're just that good. They're getting it because they just left the Pentagon and they just left the position where they were giving that company the business or the contracts where that money came from. It's a system that simply um, like how can that system go on as it is? Like,
All right.
and that just simply doesn't exist when you remove the external company that can pay someone $10 million for giving them a contract. You remove the main issue of our current system.
All right. Good stuff. All right. Now, going back to you, Mr. Tyler. Question for Emmett this time, please.
I'm still trying to frame it. If he has one ready, let him go.
No worries. Chief, you go first this time.
Cool. Emmett, could proper oversight and accountability solve for the problems of having these contracts and projects done under like the umbrella of the government itself?
I said that that's the idea, right? That's the point of having a Congress, and that's the point of having oversight committees, is that to get to that point. I don't think that we are going to have a perfect government, and there's no way that we are going to get to the point in which there's not going to be any kind of corruption. But it will be even through the problems that we have right now with the current system, it's still less corrupt than if we just give him, the bank robber the whole bank. In this case, we just have to accept the fact that we don't live in a perfect society or system, and we need to be asking to have more accountability.
Good stuff. And now it's over to you, Tyler. Are you ready for a question now, sir? Yeah? All right, cool.
Yeah. So, in the same vein of the last question I asked, I kind of want to get your response to it as well. When you were arguing that the incentive system, even if you remove the private market bidding incentive system and shift it over to a nationalized industry, and you spend all this taxpayer money you said on buying it, which I'm guessing you were suggesting they're going to buy. What are some examples of how that incentive structure now is coming out of the pocket of the taxpayer? How can you better refine that argument? Because I feel like that's your strongest point, and you need to hammer it home.
So I would say that every single time whenever we have companies and whenever we have this kind of social like social constructions, social creatures in a sense that we have, they are trying to fight for survival in a sense. When you take away the idea of the survival of the company, it becomes a free for all. At the end of the day, what they want is the government officials, what they want is to have the people they want get into those positions, fill them up, and they don't, they're going to get rich. They're still going to get the incentives of having these people working for them and doing what they want. But the company itself is like sick now. So they're going to have the problem of not having the incentive structure of trying to survive, of trying to create the things that people actually want so that they can do what they need. In this case, weapons.
I never actually started the clock because I was distracted doing something else, but good stuff. It's still fucking doing it. I don't know how to make it so that my shit stops making noises. That's really annoying. Whatever. Yeah, okay. So we're going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock now. So it's going to go to you, Casey. Your opportunity to go ahead and close for us. I'll start the clock whenever you start to talk.
My opponent has this brain rot where it's like government bad, government can't do anything, corporations do it better, business does it better. Even what he just said a moment ago, was leaning on the idea of a company surviving and needing that incentive to survive, and I entirely agree with that. That's why I'm a capitalist. I'm not the communist. I'm not debating for communism. But the whole argument is that survival structure doesn't exist. Even he admitted that our government wouldn't let Boeing fail. He admitted that, and then 5 minutes later is talking about the surviving the surviving instinct being important for an efficient company or some shit like that. Engineers work good, and they don't care if they're working for Jeff Bezos. They don't care if they're working for Sam Altman, who raped his sister. Engineers don't care. They just do work. And the actual most important point, which I haven't even mentioned, is the incentive structure for these companies to push our military, our country into war, into making more bombs, into making more military things. And when you spend $1 trillion every year on hammers, well, everything starts to look like a nail. And that's exactly what we've seen. The companies that benefit from us going to war are pushing us into war. It's been nonstop. My entire life we've been at war, in war. My entire life. This wouldn't fucking exist if it weren't for the companies that are benefiting to such an extent as they are today. If we're talking about a system where there is no competition, where the company that makes one type of plane or one type of tank is going to continue to do that. There isn't that capital. There isn't that gain you get from being a capital, from being a open market type situation. Moreover, the rank corruption that we just see, right? You could see someone going into the Pentagon, signing a contract for a company, and then leaving the Pentagon and going to work for that company for tens of millions of fucking dollars. Whatever you think the corruption is in government that exists, whatever, like this is the absolute worst version of it. That right there. Done.
All right. Good stuff. Landed it on the button. Unfortunately, I had it on the wrong screen, but that's all right. We're still working on getting better. 3 minutes is on the clock for you now, Emmett. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready, buddy. I'm all ears.
Yeah, of course. I was not going to go to personal attacks, but since I have brain rot, this commie fuckle who the wants is to get your taxpayer money and do as much damage to your country as they can. Okay? The idea of, oh, I'm not a communist. Fuck off, commie fuck, okay? We're not gonna give you our industry. We're not gonna do any of that. The point of it is that all your moral indignation means absolutely fucking nothing at all. Nothing. You're like, oh, Alman raped his sister. Who the fuck cares? You would vote, if it was possible right now, for Bill Clinton, who got a fellatio in the Oval Office and flight all the way to Epstein Island like thousands of times. Okay? So at the end of the day, when it comes to doing this kind of moral indignation about, oh, whoa, the government is better. The government is the same kind of people that are in power. And what they want and what they have as their main incentive, okay? The main incentive is to be as rich as possible and to be as powerful as possible, just as the people in the company. The difference is they do it through force. The companies do it through providing a service. That is the big difference. Companies want to be able to provide the best possible service and the best possible product that they can so they can get as much money as they can. The government doesn't. What the government does is use as much force as possible in order to gain the power and to force people into either paying them, for example, taxes, or in order to destroy the market so that you can only have one option, and it's the government option. At the end of the day, we don't want your stuff, communist. Okay, you want to go to communist countries? There's a lot in the market. Go to Venezuela. They love you there. They're gonna be super happy to have you there in Venezuela. And that would be it for me. Thank you so much, Horseradish.
Absolutely. All right. So, yeah, that was it. So great performance from both of y'all. I'm actually, unfortunately, was dealing with a sound issue there, so I kind of missed what happened there. That provoked the ad hom response. But I'm sure I will watch it whenever I'll find out whenever I hit the VOD. But with that said, the judges will be the ones who decide how that reaction and response all interacted and affected their personal positionings. So, judges, I'm going to hope that you guys are ready. I'm going to go ahead and once again drop the link in the chat. If one of you guys could, or actually, I guess, yeah, if if you could take
it's
that link.
possible,
Yes, sir.
if it's possible, would you put it in the side chat so I can link
Yes,
it?
that's what I was just about to say. So,
Thank you.
so let's
I got
chief.
it.
I can't because of the fucking delicate nature of the setup. But
There's
if
your
Let's
poll right
Chief
there in the
would
side chat.
drop it into the side chat of the
Thank you.
Discord, thank you. For Let's Chief, or for Emmett as well as for Lutch. So, okay. That is going to be the link. Go ahead and click it and vote it. And it takes nothing, and it does really, really matter. And it really, really helps. Especially because I have this strange suspicion this one might be a split decision by the judges. So it's probably going to come down, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Judges, are you guys
Vote
ready
it.
to render
Pop
your
it.
judgment?
Judge it.
Let's Chief. I'm going to have you go first because Tyler is still on the fence. What say you, sir?
What a matchup. I thought that was good. Casey, I feel like started off a little bit weak, but on the close, like ended up like bringing it all together. Like especially with the imagery of the like absolute worst version of the corruption. Just pointing out like, you know, just ensuring these contracts, getting paid millions from these companies, going back and kind of like it just being like a incestuous circle where people are just making like tons of money for like doing like a really terrible thing, is a good point. But again, like started off like not super strong. I feel like Emmett, the first half of like the open kind of like dialogue was like really strong for you, and then I feel like you kind of started to slowly revert into uh some like online political debate like tropes that honestly, you know, weren't that necessary. I feel like you were strong in your argumentation. So when you did things like, you know, starting to be like, you know, let's pretend like that's the case, just kind of dipping your toes in the bad faith there. You know, you don't rely on those like cheap tropes and like pointing to like communism too much. To the end, I like get it at the end, but like, you know, when it happened and kind of like the open dialogue, it felt just like unnecessary, and you don't need those kind of tropes to be a strong debater. And they, like, in all honesty, kind of like make you sound like every other kind of right-wing debater, when I think you might be like more skilled, and those kind of like tropes make you just kind of blend in with their kind of like bullshit that's like kind of just like simple and easy to like fall into that kind of line of argumentation. But saying like your arguments that, you know, the government being, uh, corrupt already, having to like feed more money into that. And then like initially, Casey responded back with like, oh, they'll just be like different people. That looked like really bad. And I feel like that set the argument off like really poorly. At the end, obviously things got out of hand, which isn't typically what we do here. But you know, it was kind of like on both sides. So overall, I felt that Emma just made a little bit stronger argumentation overall, and that's why I scored this debate 4-6.
4-6 for Emmett from Let's Chief. Good stuff. I actually agree with a lot of that, and we're going to get back into some of it. There's some stuff I would push back against, but I definitely enjoyed that feedback. Are you now prepared, Mr. Tyler? All right, good stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead. The mic's yours. Where did you land? Chat, please,
All
please,
right.
please. It's not allowed. Okay, I'm
So
going to
I
fix
was
that right now.
just-
Sorry, people.
I was just saying that thing about cross-examination, and then Emmett comes in and probably did the best cross I've seen in like several debates, man. He just beat him up, and I don't think the arguments ever recovered from that. He laid down his main argument of if government's corrupt, how is more government going to solve government corruption? And the answer to that initially was we're removing the pay incentive. And he said, well, the incentive will just shift to taxpayers. And Casey, I tried to give you that. I tried to tee you up, set up the context, and give you that and say, this is the argument you need to hit. And you didn't give me a sufficient answer and then never went back to it. I really feel like that was what you needed to refute to make it was a core pillar of your argument that you didn't hold up on. And Emmett stumbled a couple times. He really fucked up. When he asked you for a country, and then 2 questions later, he massively shifted his goalpost to like ask you like about the nationalized space program of that country. It looked really bad on his part. He goofed there, and you didn't pounce on it at all. Evan, again, that's one goof. A couple other times you could have been using more examples. That's why I specifically asked you, give me some real world examples. You're saying taxpayers are now on the hook. It's not going to be the private industry corruption. We're going to get a different kind of corruption. Tell me how that plays out. And there's probably some better examples I would have used, but you gave me a sufficient amount to back up your argument. So I really just wanted to help you guys both out there a little bit. So I gave it to Emmett 7-3.
3-7.
3-7, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No, it's
Yes,
all right.
yeah,
It's all right.
yeah.
I know what you meant. I know what you meant.
That's so confusing.
Left and right. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, you know, you are you one of these guys?
All right.
All right. So in that case, it looks like once again, it's going to come down to the audience vote is actually just for show, kind of like America. But
Show
let's
for
go ahead
show.
and give it a couple of seconds to let y'all lock it in, because apparently I had fucked up and I was prohibiting the VPN users from voting on this one. I know I fixed it on the other ones, so I apologize. That was my bad. As you guys can all tell, there's a lot of new changes, a lot of new shit, a lot of things we're figuring out for the first time tonight. So we're gonna stumble, but we'll never fall. So, all right, 5, 4, 3, 2, locked it in. Show me them results. Ooh, this one's much closer. This one was also going to be a 6-4 for Emmet. So that is a second shutout victory, or excuse me, 4-6 is what I mean to say. So it looks like Casey, while we did appreciate your performance, it looks like the audience and the judges seem to think that that Emmet took the win here. So. Great job from both of you guys, and the fact is, I mean, I always enjoy your content, Casey, communist or not, or socialist for the record. But Emmet, this is my first time.
Neither of those.
I know
was
you're
the
not.
straw man.
I was just fucking with you. But Emmet, for what it's worth, enjoyed the hell out of your. This was your first showing, man, and yeah, like exactly like both the judges said, I was super impressed. So thank you very, very much for coming in, man. Please hang out and again stick around as late as you can. But as always, like you said, you're new, so
Yeah.
anytime you need to go, you go ahead and go. So
I do gotta go, but I cannot stay. But what I can do is I can stay with my avatar and everything here, so that you don't have to move everything. Would you like me to do that?
cheers, that would be beautiful. I'm tempted to have you try and leave just to see if it nukes the whole fucking thing, but I don't want to have to go through it again. So we'll nuke it some other time. So yes, if you would do that, sir, you are the beast.
Emmett, where
Okay.
can we find you again?
And yeah, Emmett, go ahead and
You can
drop
find me
any
at
links, please.
You can find me in YouTube at Count Emmet. I just got monetized yesterday.
Congratulations.
So that is pretty rad. I do art more than anything. I do pixel art, another kind of art stuff. Let me go ahead and I've been working on Warhammer 40K with my Sisters of Battle, which are the snow bunnies, and they're gonna be doing cool rad stuff. And I do karaoke on Saturdays. So I thought it was tomorrow, or else I probably wouldn't have been available. But it was fun. Thank you for having me on, and I will just stay in the call. I will not be able to hear you. I will stay muted, but just so you don't have to move
Yep.
everything.
I appreciate it. Hopefully I can get you back on again in the future, sir. All right.
Thanks so much, Jose. Thank you for inviting me, Tyler, and good to see everybody. Thank you for the debate, Casey.
Later.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our third and final debate. We're way late because of all the technical difficulties and the glitches and shit, but we're here, we're doing it. So again, I appreciate all y'all fucking hanging out and being patient with us. So our third and final debate, our headliner, so to speak, of the night is going to be: legal personhood should begin at conception. This is going to be between, on the left, on the Aff, Lutch, the Indian Jesus. And up here above me on the right, representing the negative side of this prompt, is going to be Searka, our returning almost champion. Sorry, Searka. It sucked, but he came in at the end and he knocked you off your pedestal. So, but this time, this one is going to be yours. So, that said, Lutch, you guys both know how this works. Do you guys have any questions before we begin? Or are you ready to just jump into it? You guys have been super patient. I appreciate it.
Ready to go.
All right, cheers. Well, then in that case, Lutch, 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. I will start the clock when you start to talk. Bring the thunder.
All right. Well, thank you, Horseradish, for hosting, and Searka for taking this debate. I'm looking forward to getting into this without appealing to God or religion. We're here to discuss one question: when does human life gain the right to not be killed? I propose that legally, personhood should begin at conception because that is the moment a new, distinct human life begins. Unique DNA equals unique human being. From that point forward, what exists is not a potential human. It is a human with potential. Bill Burr may be a filthy live, but even he can acknowledge in his comedy bit that cake batter in the oven wouldn't be called a potential cake, but a cake in process. From that moment of conception, a fetus has its own DNA, its own developmental trajectory, and, if not interfered with, generally will go through every stage of life that you and I have already passed through. So, at what point during this continuous process is it okay to choose to end a human life? Searka may try to move this debate into gray areas, viability, consciousness, dependency, etc., but those are all changing and subjective standards. Viability shifts with technology, consciousness is difficult to define and even harder to measure, and dependency exists in many forms throughout life, specifically directly after birth, which I'm sure we would agree it's not okay to kill at that point. None of these provide a clear, consistent, or principled line for when a human life magically gains value. Conception does. It is the only point that is biologically grounded, logically consistent, and not arbitrarily dependent on external factors. If we're going to draw a line at all, and the law must draw a line, then it should be at the point where a human life actually scientifically begins, not somewhere later based on shifting definitions or the convenience of 304s. Once we admit that some human lives do not yet count, we are no longer debating the beginning of life. We are deciding which lives count and which don't. Searka will likely argue about difficult cases, edge scenarios, and legal complications. I don't deny that recognizing personhood at conception would require us to think carefully about how we handle those situations. But difficulty is not an argument against doing what is right. We already build complex legal frameworks to protect human life in countless contexts. The fact that something is complicated does not mean that it's optional. The question isn't whether this creates challenges. The question is whether we are willing to recognize a human life for what it is and extend to it the most basic protection we give to any person: the right not to be intentionally killed. That is what is at stake in this debate. And my position is the only one that life maxes, as Clavicular would say, and minimizes the needless death of babies.
All right. So you landed it right on the button there. Searka, 3 minutes is on the clock for you to cross-examine. Use this time as you see fit, sir. Welcome in. Glad you could make it. And I hope you're ready. We'll start the clock when you are ready.
Of course. Well, first off, does every cell have its own DNA, unique DNA? Indian Jesus?
Sorry, you were a little quiet. Does every what?
Does every cell have its own unique DNA?
No. The cells in a singular body is going to have the similar DNA structure. That's why we're using DNA, not being a cell. You know, a lot of people will talk about like, oh, I could clip off a toenail and that's still my DNA. But that's moving far outside of the framework of assigning personhood to a fetus.
So you're just factually wrong. No, every cell has its own unique DNA. That's a fact.
Is it though?
Yeah, it is. And then second, things like being biologically human are not the same as being enough for full personhood, right? Like that doesn't really just mean anything about what the debate is about, correct?
Sure.
So just because it's biologically human doesn't mean that we automatically just assume something like personhood.
Why?
Correct?
No, not
Because
correct.
those two things are different things. It's actually pretty unclear when to give personhood from, right? Personhood is essentially something a government does, like the described rights we have in government are then prescribed onto something. And it's to me, I think it is extremely unclear to give personhood to just a fertilized egg. But
So I just want to
we'll
be.
get to that.
Maybe I'm
Yeah.
ignorant AF, but you're telling me that there's a different DNA sequence in cells in my right hand than the cells in my left hand.
They're similar, man, but each cell has its own unique DNA.
So then, can we talk? So then, let me rephrase unique DNA to be the unique DNA profile.
Mhm.
Unique
I
DNA
would- I mean,
profile equals unique human being, correct?
I mean, there's not much more to say right now than just probably like we can
Well,
read
is
like
that
a biology
is that
textbook.
correct or is that incorrect?
No, it's just this is not really relevant. Okay, I'm sorry. It's in my cross section right now, but you just need to read a biology book.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I want to talk about. Okay, I mean, how much longer? We have 36 seconds. I think one of the other things you said was something about. No, I'm pretty sure that just covers it. The rest of it was kind of like nonsense to me. So we can move
All
forward.
right, cheers. Well, then in that
Sorry.
case, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is on the clock for you now, Searka. Whenever you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Okay. I'm going to say that, of course, something biologically human exists at conception. In my opinion, the negative does not need to deny that myself. The real question is whether conception starts the rights of makes the start of a rights-bearing person in the moral, legal, and philosophical sense. Those are not the same thing, and treating them as the same thing is a whole mistake. Biology can tell us when a new organism begins. It cannot by itself settle when full personhood begins. When moral standing becomes equivalent to you or me, when the law must treat a fertilized egg as a citizen, the move requires argument and not just assertion. Something like DNA is not enough, in my eyes. Metabolism is not enough. Human origin is not enough. If it were every human tissue sample would carry the same status, and clearly it does not. So the burden here is heavier than it first appears, in my eyes. There must be a reason conception and conception alone is the bright moral line. Why not implantation? Why not sentience? Why not consciousness? You brought up consciousness, but both of those two things you said to yourself are very unclear. Applying personhood to a developing fetus is in and of itself extremely unclear as well. I found it kind of weird that we brought up consciousness and didn't really see the link there. At least not like topically, but just the link between their unclearness. Why not viability? Once those questions are on the table, the certainty around
Did I not answer that?
conception starts to wobble quite a bit. And that matters because this is not a careless debate. It is a serious one. If full moral status, legal protection, and public power are being assigned at the very first instant of development, that requires more than a slogan. It requires a reason that survives scrutiny. And that matters because this is, oh, sorry. So the negative position is not that life is worthless before birth, not at all. It is that personhood is a developing status, not a switch flipped at fertilization. Moral weight can grow and human value can be real, but conception is not magic. And saying it is, I just don't think says or does it so. So.
All right. I take it that sounded like you landed it. So 3 minutes is now going to be on the clock for you, Lutch. Go ahead and
Really?
cross-examine as you see fit, sir.
Okay, so then you're saying not a conception is a bad place to draw the line. So then where would we draw the line?
I think the moment of birth is the most clear point at which we could actually prescribe governmental personhood or personhood, which is the prescription of rights from a government onto a human being.
So 9 months in the womb, totally good to kill them because they're not a person. Is that your position?
I don't think it's murder. You just said kill.
I
but
didn't
I
say. I said kill. I didn't say murder. I said, can
Would-
you kill them?
I don't think it's killing.
Do you
either.
not think they're alive? Our fetus is not alive?
Semantically, I guess you're correct. Killing, yes. That's. I guess
Is there
what
another
Paul did, yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah.
So if it is
No, no,
alive,
I'm
is it
agreeing with you.
okay?
I'm agreeing with you there. Yeah.
Okay. So then the question stands: is it okay? 9 months pregnant, sitting on the table, saying push, and be like, actually, you know what? Nah, just end it. That's okay.
I mean, no, that doesn't happen though.
Why not?
Because
I didn't ask if
that's
it
not what
happens. I
happens
asked
in
if it was
reality.
okay. Why is it not okay?
So you said 9 months in. Okay, how many? What? I'm sure you've heard this before, but what is the percentage of third trimester?
Why is that relevant to my question? I'm giving you a hypothetical.
Because you made up
where
a
there's
scenario
9.
that's
There's
not
a. I'll tell you again. There's a baby, or there's a mother
You,
that is 9
you
months
can tell me
pregnant.
again, but what you just said is made up. It doesn't happen, man.
Yeah, that's what a hypothetical is, sweetie.
And
So
beyond
again, the
this, okay?
hypothetical is there's a woman
Yeah.
and she
yeah.
is pregnant, 9 months. Baby's about to come out. According to your framework, it is okay to kill that fetus, not murder. I understand you don't think it's murder, but it's okay to end the life of that fetus at 9 months because of the fact that you say it's not a person.
I actually probably think it's
I'm
not
just
okay. But
I'm just establishing. I'm trying to understand.
gonna let me
yes,
answer?
that's what you believe, or
are
no,
you
that's not what
going
you
to
believe?
let me answer?
Sound like you were about to ramble. So yes or no question.
No, I just said I actually don't think it's okay. I just don't think it's possible to legislate on it,
Okay, why is it not
which
okay?
is what this topic is about.
Sure.
It's
Why is
about
it not okay?
legislating this
Right. Why is it not okay?
because the risks far outweigh what you're talking about right now.
The risk to who?
It's the risk to the women, the risk to, I mean,
Okay, so
a
you were
lot. Like
talking about
here, let me give you another
viability.
example.
You're talking.
Let me give you another example.
If I
okay?
could just take my cross examination while we're so you talked about viability before, and as I mentioned in my opening, that viability changes based on technology. So if we had the technology that was completely safe for a woman to have an abortion at 9 months, that would be okay with you?
I'm sorry, we're
Completely
mammals.
safe for the woman.
We are mammals, dude. If we could shit eggs like fucking
That does
chickens,
not answer my
it would be
question.
different. Yes, it does.
How would you
question's
how would you
dumb.
feel if you didn't eat anything yesterday?
No, we are mammals. We have complicated pregnancies. No amount of technology is going to change that, my friend.
That's not the question. The
It
technology
is. That's
can
the
change.
problem here.
I
Is
can
that
explain it to you. I can
we
explain it to
have
you.
development that happens here. Okay,
Uh-huh.
like here, you can have a condition where, like the fetus, for instance, the doctors know that it's not producing a hormone or something to make a liver.
How do they know that? Do they use technology? Do they always have that technology? Is it possible that new technology will come up where it is exactly what I'm saying, the hypothetical that I'm bringing, whether there's no
How
risk
is
to
that
the
going
mother?
to change the fact that the liver will not grow inside the fetus?
Why do we need the liver to grow in the fetus if we're killing it?
Oh my god. If you okay, do you want to outlaw abortion? Is that your
Generally,
argument?
yes.
Okay, so if in your world right now, the fetus that I just described has to be all the way to term with no liver, and then the mother has to watch it die in her arms once she gives birth to it.
Okay.
Are you aware of this?
Yes. I don't know. Is there a question?
Is that fucking cool to you, or I'm confused? Like,
no?
what do you mean? Okay, so,
do
how do we
do you
stop
not
that?
understand the difference? Do you not understand the difference between legal and emotionally or morally acceptable?
I do. I do.
Okay. So then you're doing
Yeah.
a bait and switch there because you asked me how I feel about it when we're talking about the law.
Exactly. Well, remember, I said I actually
So
don't
you're
agree
projecting
with,
that I think it's
let me
totally
answer,
cool.
Let me
The
answer.
situation
I said I
that you
don't.
just gave, when
Let
that's
me
not
answer.
the case.
Let me answer. I said I don't agree with someone just getting an abortion in that weird, just push it out, fucking 9
Okay,
months
agreed.
in. But
So,
I don't
and
think we could
then?
legislate it because I'm not a moron.
Okay,
Because what
elaborate.
happens is we end up with what I just described to you a second ago, where someone has to carry a fucking baby to term with
And
no
that's worse
liver,
than
knowing that it
millions
will
of babies
die.
dying a year.
Their fetus.
I will stand 10 toes down that if whatever number of women that happens to every year, that is less than the babies that are killed every year.
Do you think less maternal death and fetus death happens when you outlaw abortion or more?
Depends on how the law works, but I mean,
I feel like you've never looked at these stats then, because if
you're
you're actually
asking
worried
a very broad
about,
question. There are many ways. I'm
it's not
answering.
broad. We've
Can I
studied
answer the
this
question?
completely.
Can I answer the question? You're asking a very broad question, and it depends on the specifics of the law that to answer the question. I don't know based on is it okay? That's too broad for me to answer. Can you? If
Didn't
you
you
want
just
to
make a
specify
broad
the
statement? Didn't you just make a broad statement about how I want less babies to be killed or something?
Yep.
I mean, I'm just telling you that when we outlaw
Yes.
abortion, we end up with more dead fetuses, essentially more dead babies in your eyes.
Oh, okay. So when we end up with a law that doesn't align with reality, we should just get rid of that law because reasons.
Making a law about life beginning at conception is reality, like
Yep.
personhood. How?
Because unique DNA, the
You already-
unique DNA
I
profile,
already-
the unique
I
DNA
already told you.
profile.
I already told you that unique DNA is in every cell, so the potentiality
Right,
argument
but
there is it's pretty dumb.
Okay, fine. So you can, if you want to play semantics, then you very clearly
That's not
know that
semantics.
that you could take a fingerprint or a footprint or a hair from my body and it would match with me versus a hair, a fingerprint, or something from you, and that would match you, right? So maybe I'm too stupid to know
Sure.
what that is called, but that.
No, I just don't think you understand that now. The potentiality.
Maybe I
argument,
don't, but where am I wrong?
About no, the potentiality argument, making conception now this like realistic, law that you can do, is a problem. Is it not?
I mean,
It doesn't
would be
match
difficult.
reality.
I mean, why not? I think it would be extremely. I do think it would be difficult, as I said in my opening, but that just because it's difficult. I mean, this is essentially, I mean, this is the same kind of argument that we've heard.
What do you mean? What do you mean difficult?
I'm giving you. I'm admitting that if we extend personhood to conception, then that will create other conflicts in the legal system. I'm saying that doesn't mean it's okay to kill babies.
Okay, you think it's like murder, though? I'm assuming. Why do you keep saying kill?
Yes, because
it's
you
murder?
don't accept it as murder. I'm playing on your field.
No, you can say it's murder.
I'm not
and I can just
invoking murder
accept-
because I know that you don't think that. So we can agree that it's being killed. That's why I specifically asked you before. Do you
No,
believe that it is
You
alive
think it
and
is
that it can be
literally
killed?
murder, though, right? You think it's a murder.
That's
happening.
irrelevant to the point.
It is not irrelevant.
Okay, why is it relevant? Why is it relevant that I think it's
We're
murder
talking
versus
about
kill?
personhood here, right? So when life begins at conception, okay? For instance, are you aware of Texas's maternal death statistics at all? Like the average
Nope.
rate of a pregnant woman's death per capita per 100,000 in Texas?
I do not. I'm not familiar.
Okay, so after they put in their trigger law effect for abortion, right? They just stopped giving the data to the free paid for service to actually like measure this, right? And it went up like, I think in the first year before they just stopped giving the data, it went up like fucking 30 to 50%. Okay. So you want less murder to happen. You want less killing to happen, correct?
No, because they're very clearly we can have, as I said, it depends on how the law works. So maybe that law and the way that Texas does it doesn't help and leads to more babies. That doesn't mean that extending
it doesn't
personhood
help because it's unclear.
It doesn't mean that inherently.
It
doesn't mean that inherently by extending personhood to conception that problem must exist. We can change other laws to make sure that the problem you're appealing to doesn't exist.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So,
we are
so it's
mammals. We have
impossible.
complicated pregnancies. We have
okay, so I just want to make
pregnancies.
sure. So now we're going to edge cases. So what if I just even give you those edge cases and we say
these are not edge cases, dude. These are not edge cases.
Okay,
This is not like a distribution chart. This is not a distribution chart where you can be like, oh look, like an island out there in the middle of nowhere.
My apologies. I thought you were going down the grape and incest route. My bad.
No, I'm talking about just how women have complicated pregnancies. We have shitty. We did not evolve like a nice way to give children. Unfortunately, it's very complicated. It can be very brutal, and if you essentially give personhood all the way to conception, we have far worse outcomes for everyone involved. Completely.
Okay, outcomes like what? Which outcomes are worse?
Maternal death, as well as rates of infertility.
What about the baby's death?
So like,
what about the number of babies though?
Again, I don't think it's murder, right?
I didn't ask you about murder. You keep trying to put that word in my mouth. I have never spoken the word murder on this stream. You and I agree that a fetus is alive.
Okay.
We are talking about ending the life
I don't
of
think it
that
gets
living thing.
personhood though. So killing in this
Okay,
case,
but we didn't get
killing
there yet. I'm not asking you
in
about
this
person.
case, killing the
I'm asking
fetus
you.
does not mean murder to
Okay,
me,
so
right?
because it's not a
I don't
person,
think
then
it's
it's
just
okay to kill it.
killing like that. I don't think it's just killing like you're saying it.
What do you mean just killing? What's the difference between killing and just killing?
When two people
is
who
it
have
ending the life or
personhood,
is it not ending the life?
when two people who have personhood kill each other, okay, there
Uh-huh.
is a personhood prescribed to them, right?
I would say that
As
would
in,
be
like the
before
government,
that, but
they
sure,
have
yes.
rights. At least
Yes.
if we're talking in the U.S., I guess if you go to some random island,
Sure.
it won't work this way. But I don't think it's possible to put that onto a fetus because of the outcomes we have, and
Such
because
as?
of the fact that I just told
Such
you
as what?
eternal death.
Okay, and so then
the
I asked
infertility
you
rates
how
among
that
women.
compares to the fetal death. If we have 100 women who die every single year from complications because they can't get an abortion, and we have 1 million babies that die every year because they're aborted, I unfortunately, this is not a perfect world. People die. There are complications. I'm sorry, the lady's got to die. If the lady's got to die to save millions and millions of babies, it's not an easy thing. This is why I got frustrated when you said, "Oh, you think that's okay?" No, I don't think it's okay. I just think it's a fact of reality that when you compare the two situations where there's some maternal death versus there
Right.
is a fetal death in every single instance, and then there still could be issues like if you don't get all the parts out and you can get infected and so on and so forth. So then some of the maternal death there also falls into women who get abortions. So I'm not.
Okay,
I understand
Didn't you
the
say earlier?
emotional thing
Didn't
that
you?
you are.
One sec.
I
Didn't you just say
understand the
earlier
emotion.
that? Oh my God, can I talk for a second? Didn't you just say earlier that being biologically human, you agree with me, does not mean that it is enough for legal personhood? Correct?
I don't think I said that. What was the question? What?
Do you think just simply being biologically human, okay, as in like the fact that it's now a fertilized egg, is enough for personhood?
Yes, that's the debate, is it not?
So why don't we just make unfertilized eggs have personhood?
Because they don't have the unique DNA. They haven't started the
Yes,
process.
they
All
do.
these,
They're
all
also
of those,
biologically human. So what route are you using right now to tell me that just a fertilized egg is somehow more human or something?
again,
Or
whatever
qualifies
you
more?
want. I don't know the correct word, but whatever is different
Then
between
why
if
do
you
you
took
have such
my.
a strong
Can I answer
opinion
the
on
question?
this?
Because
No, because
it
you
doesn't
have
matter. It
nothing.
doesn't matter what you call it, dude. I'm saying whatever you want to call the difference between taking a piece of my hair and being able to match it to my DNA profile or whatever the fuck you want to call it, versus taking a hair from you and being able to match that to you at a murder scene or whatever that is. That I don't care what you call it. Fine, it's not unique DNA. I was wrong in saying it's unique DNA. The principle of what I am appealing to still exists. Do you think that do you
What is
agree
that
at least
principle? What
that
is the principle?
there is a uniqueness to each individual human being?
Every cell is unique. Move on.
Okay. Does
Next
that
one.
so how does that stop my point that if my hair is found at a murder scene, that they could
If
tie
your
that
whole
to me
point
and know
rests
that
on
it's not
whether or
for you?
not it's unique and it's
Yeah, why do I need to finish
literally
the question,
every
right?
cell is unique, then how the hell do you make this conclusion?
So I just want to be clear. The science of doing DNA testing in law enforcement, that is
I don't
completely
know if
irrelevant.
it's really smart to bring
Can
up the
I?
science when you
Nope, I
didn't
don't get to
even
finish that
know
question. I don't get
that
to finish an
every
answer.
cell
I
has
don't get to finish
DNA,
the
man.
question. Oh my god! I thought this was a 1v1. So
Why are
the
you invoking
question
science
is,
when you didn't even know that?
the question is, do you acknowledge that there is some scientific aspect that if there is one of our hairs found at a murder scene, that they would be able to tie it back to whatever you call your identity, your body, your soul, whatever it is? Do you disagree that that is how science works?
Should we give it personhood?
So again, the question was, do you disagree that that's how science works? If your
Should
hair
we give that
is
piece of hair
found,
personhood?
no, you didn't understand it, so I'll say it again. If I take a hair, if my hair is found at a murder scene, they can use
Yeah.
that hair to determine that it was not Searka, it was Lutch, and vice versa. If your hair is found, they can use that hair to say it was Searka, not Lutch. Is that correct science or is that incorrect science?
It's correct science. Now let's give it
Okay,
personhood.
so then whatever the difference there is that whatever you want to call it, fine. If it's not unique DNA, then fine. It's not unique DNA. I don't give a shit about the semantics. That thing, whatever that is, whatever process that allows a single hair to be tied to me and only me, exists within this child at the moment of conception.
Okay, so the property for you to ground
So that's
personhood
why
again.
that. So do you have a better line? Is it where should we
Yes,
start then?
because right now it sounds to me like a person's hair could qualify, I guess, in your world for personhood. Kind of funny.
Nope.
I don't,
See,
I
this
don't
is
know
what
how
I
that
said
would be
before
correct.
about the nope. Does the hair doesn't have the whole profile, right? That's a
Oh,
human.
it's
That's a
unique,
whole
unique or something.
You keep trying to. I'm conceding that. I'm conceding that
Okay.
the unique DNA is not the correct term. You're now being in bad
Okay.
faith, purposely trying to straw man me. That I'm saying, no, oh, we do have unique DNA. That's not what I said. I'm giving you that. Fine. I don't
never
know
said
the
that.
scientific term on what makes it what makes the police able to find me from a single hair and know that it's not you, and vice versa. I don't know what that
We're
term
not
is.
even talking about that. We're literally not even.
I'm talking about that. You seem to not want to talk about what I'm talking about because I think it
I'm
directly
trying to
exemplifies
understand.
what I'm trying to say to you.
No, I'm trying to understand how you are grounding, okay, the property of personhood in your worldview right now. And it seems
And
to
what
me
did I
you
say?
think
What did I say
DNA
when
is
you asked me
unique.
before? What did I
You
say
said DNA.
when you asked me before?
Let me just. Is this not correct? Okay, just tell me if it's not. You said DNA is unique, therefore, when the fertilized egg happens, it's a unique DNA, right? Unique human DNA, I guess, and that means we can put personhood on it. That's how you're
So
grounding
did
it,
I
correct?
did I already concede that and show that that doesn't matter to my argument?
Okay, so what are you using to ground it with then?
Again, whatever you want to call the process, that if one of my hairs is found at a murder scene, they can tie it back to me and not you, versus if they find your hair at a murder scene, they can tie it back to you and not me or anybody else. I don't know what that's called. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a
I
law
don't care.
enforcement.
That's
I'm
not
not a
what I asked
forensic.
you. I'm asking
So,
you what
I
you are
don't know what it's
grounding.
called. That is what I'm appealing to. Are you
I
going
don't
to say that
care. I
because I
didn't
don't know
ask
what
you
it's
that.
called that it doesn't exist?
I don't care. That's not what I asked you. I asked you what is the
You
property
asked me
are
what I'm grounding it in, and I grounded it in exactly what I just told you. I just don't know the name for it. Fine, unique DNA is not appropriate. What is wrong about the actual thing that I'm talking about? What is incorrect scientifically about the notion that if you find my hair versus finding your hair, that they could tie it to you and nobody else? What part of that is wrong? That it's
Because I
not
don't know
unique
how
DNA.
that.
I know that, but
I
the
don't know
process.
how that grounds personhood.
Then I don't know what else to do for you, baby. I don't know what else to do. The fact that you are a unique human being in and of itself as a whole human being, that
So
is the
uniqueness,
grounding.
uniqueness,
At conception,
uniqueness.
that is when that becomes a reality. So
So
whatever you want to
unique,
call that.
being unique is your grounding property right here.
Yeah, sure.
Except every cell is unique, and now we can give this piece of hair personhood.
So no.
No?
Because the hair applies to a profile that I'm talking about. A full, I don't know if it's gametes or a fucking
Piece of a ribosome of a cell will profile to
what do
a
they
single
fucking call
cell.
it? What do they call the profile? Like it's like it starts with a G. Fucking, I don't know what I mean. I think you're really being bad faith. Because
Golgi
clearly, if you know
apparatus?
more about this than I do, you absolutely know what the fuck I'm trying to say. And
I
don't know.
kind of do.
So
I just want you to
whatever
know that
makes
it's not
DNA
good.
evidence work, whatever makes
It's not.
DNA
It's
evidence
not
work
good
is what I'm
enough to
grounding it.
ground personhood. It's
Why
just
not?
not.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and jump on in there. I gave y'all an extra 5 minutes because I was enjoying the back and forth. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the judges' questions. And I have a strange suspicion the judges' questions are probably going to be able to bridge this gap a little bit. I'm really counting on that fact, actually. So, judges, I know y'all have been listening. I know y'all are all the way into this. Who's going to go first for me? Tyler, you doing it again? Chief, do you still need a second? Yep, Tyler looks like he's ready. So, Tyler, your first question, please, if you would, for Lutch.
Yes, I'm so fucking annoyed by this. Could you please, Lutch, explain, just uninterrupted, what you mean when you're saying a unique DNA profile individual to a human being?
So again, the idea, whatever the principle is that allows us to use DNA analysis in the court of law. Maybe I'm retarded. I thought that we all had unique DNA and every cell has the sign. But whatever the process is that allows for one of my hairs to be tied back to my identity is it's unique in that manner. And because it is not just the uniqueness, it's the fact that the entire profile is unique.
Okay. All right, good stuff. And now I'm hoping you're ready as well,
Different
Mr.
person.
Let's Chief. Let's Chief, do you have a question for Lutch?
Yeah, let me read my own handwriting real quick.
All right, go ahead and hit him when you're ready.
So I think between like 1/3 and 1/2 of all fertilized eggs fail to implant. Would you suggest that there should be a crime committed essentially each time that one of those
No,
egg fails to implant? And
no,
why or why not?
because that's a natural process. So nobody is doing anything. It's like you, yeah, nobody's actively making that happen. That's just a part of the natural process.
Good enough. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and go over to Searka. Tyler, got a question ready for him.
I'm still working on it. If
Tyler,
he's
yeah,
got one
let's
ready.
Chief. Can you ready for a Searka question then?
Yeah, could you explain if there's a difference between biological personhood and legal personhood and why?
Why is there a difference between biological and legal personhood? I mean, I don't know what biological personhood is. That's just biologically human. Legal personhood is when we prescribe the described rights of a government, at least, onto a human being. So it's a legal like a legal prescription that we described in our government. It's not just being human, obviously. I think that they're just. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. And are you now ready, Mr. Tyler?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta go a little outside of the debate, and I hate doing that. I hate bringing things in to make my own argument. It's just a lot of this was a definitional debate trying to figure out what he was saying. So, Searka, would you already say that we somewhat already just legally prescribe personhood onto a fetus? Like if a drunk driver kills a
Yes, we do.
pregnant woman, will get charged with murder. So that personhood
Yes, we do.
legally is already in place. Would you be arguing against that existing?
No. I would not be, no.
That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I get.
Yeah. Thank you. I fucked that up, Ancom. I appreciate you, buddy.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're still figuring it out, kids. All right. So now then, we are to the point where each of the debaters is going to give us their 3-minute close. Thank you guys for that. We're going to head over to you first, Lutch. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock, my friend. This is your time to shine. Put a button on it. Let us hear it.
So we're doing closing.
Yes, sir. 3-minute closing is all yours.
Yeah, so I think I definitely need to look up this this thing about each single cell having such a unique profile that it can't be considered, maybe it's right, but that doesn't change the fact that we very clearly can use DNA to identify an individual. And so oops, whoopsie. I don't have the correct word for whatever that is, but Searka absolutely understands that there is a uniqueness to each person, and the connective tissue to whatever it is, all the cells in my body that are different than the cells in Searka's body. He understands that's what I'm appealing to. And for some reason, he wants to, take a semantic win because I don't know the right words. I mean, okay, cool, but I don't think that changes anything about the fact that despite we didn't really get into it, but despite the differences that we would need to make to the law and the carve outs that we would need to do, which would be extensive. That's kind of where I thought this argument was going to go. That despite that, that doesn't, as I said in my opening, being complicated is not an excuse to do something that is not right or not do what is right. And I think what is right is to accept that the unique profile or whatever Searka wants to use, whatever word that is, that allows the process of DNA analysis to work. That is what is the basis for why I think a fetus should be granted personhood. Yeah, I mean, we already have things like if you if you run over a pregnant woman with your car, then you get charged with murder twice. So there's ways that we have to bring that in, and there's other ways that might be, again, more difficult. But being difficult does not mean that we should just it's too hard not to kill the babies. I mean, we'd have to have a conversation and change the laws and stuff. So let's just kill the babies. I think the idea that, it may be true that we see more maternal deaths when abortion is illegal, but that's a very unique factor. And there's many factors that go into the health and safety of the mother and the baby. And so focusing on that part, again, seems kind of bad faith, if I'm going to be honest. I apologize. I like you, brother, but I don't think you've been in good faith here. So I'll throw it back to you.
All right, cheers. 3 minutes is now going to be on the clock for you, Searka. It's your turn to close. How do you respond?
I think I'm just going to say that the weight of the round is not whether human development or just simply like biology in general begins at conception. Obviously, human biology does begin at conception. Non-life cannot create life, right? Not like excluding abiogenesis, I guess. But the real question is whether a biological beginning is enough for personhood to by itself establish that in a full and moral and legal sense. That is the claim I think I asked to accept, or at least we were asked to accept. And that claim requires more than just recognition, more than caution, more than just like an emotional force. It requires a reason. And I guess the one we heard today in the grounding was uniqueness. That reason never arrives simply by pointing to conception as a starting point, in my opinion. A beginning matters, but a beginning is not the same as a completed moral status in this case. Human DNA is not enough. Mere membership in a species is not enough. Potential is not identity. A seed matters. It is alive, real, and I think it is worthy of care. But we do not confuse the seed with the tree here. We do not take the first moment of process and pretend the whole process is already complete as it relates to legal personhood. And that is why the debate matters. Once conception is treated as the decisive moral line, the law is no longer making a modest judgment, it is making a total one. It is saying that the earliest cellular stage carries the same standing as a conscious, developed person or newborn baby. That is an enormous claim to me. If that line is going to govern rights, duties, and public power, it must be defended with precision, not lack of clarity. What you have instead is a description of biological origin doing work I think it cannot do on its own. I think biology can tell us where a new organism begins, where a new organism line begins, but it cannot, standing alone, settle when personhood begins. I want to point out that every cell in the human body is unique in its own way to the other cells in your own body, in the same manner in which he just described in his closing. It's not a framework that makes sense. It's being forced, in my opinion, if you try to actually understand how uniqueness doesn't really mean legal personhood. The negative position here remains the careful one, in my opinion, mine. And human life before birth has value. I think it has moral significance, but the value is not the same thing, again, one more time, as full personhood. And conception is a clear philosophical line, is not a clear philosophical line that is often made out to be.
Right. And time. Very cool. So, thank you both very, very much. We're going to go ahead and go over to the judges to see. I'm going to be real. I have no idea how this one's going to go. I have been right on, well, kind of half right on my guesses previous to this one. I have no idea how the fuck this one's going to land. So I hope that the judges are more ready than I am. I'm also going to go ahead and get that into chat. So I did already make sure that the VPN users were able to vote. If somebody would grab that and put it into the Discord room chat for me, somebody who's in the room, so that way people on other platforms can share it as they see fit. And remember, judging is free. Voting is free is what I meant to say. Sorry. Judges, are you fellas ready? Yeah? Tyler, you know what? You've been going first every time.
He's enthusiastic.
Yeah, he is, and
you've
you've been picking up the slack for LetsChief. So, Go ahead and lay it on us. Where did you land on this?
A lot of time was not well spent in this debate. Like, it just, Lutch, I clearly was laying out something that I easily picked up what he was laying out. And still, even all the way to the closing, it seemed like Searka did not comprehend. There was like 15 minutes wasted on that. Like, Searka made some pretty damn good arguments in the opening. He talked about the philosophical justification for personhood. I waited. I was waiting for that argument. I didn't think Andy and Jesus would have anything for it. That argument never showed up. I never got any meat to those bones. So we did get a utilitarian argument out of Searka saying that the risk wouldn't be worth the reward. Andy and Jesus came back and countered that utilitarian argument by saying, what if there's 1 million abortions versus 100 women? I'm sorry, but those 100 women going to die. A utilitarian equation would essentially say this is the best way to do harm reduction is save 1 million lives. And Searka responded with, but I never said it was murder. And then they got into a squabble over murder. And then they got into a squabble over killing. And the utilitarian argument, we never got back to it. So in my mind, the last person that landed a good point on that was Lutch. So I have to give it to him because we just never heard any more on that. And then again, Searka's closing, he was stating conclusions, and the conclusions were good. I just never heard any of that during the debate. Your opening gave me promise that I was looking forward to. I think you even had the winning argument in there if you could have proven it. We just didn't get it. And so I think Lutch was able to stand his affirmation unchallenged because he really just got the final word on almost all the other arguments except for the one you guys never got to the end to because we never got the definition down.
So final score?
7-3. 7-3.
7-3 for the affirmative. All right, LetsChief.
Thank you, sir.
It's on you now, buddy. Where'd you land?
So I'm just gonna echo a lot of Tyler's sentiments. For me, I feel like Searka's closing moved me maybe a little bit more than it moved Tyler. Again, I agree with Tyler that he made a lot of great arguments in his closing that we didn't really get like during the debate. And they could have been more, well supported during the debate. And it felt like, Lutch gave like here's A, B, C, and D for why I believe what I believe based on these qualities. And in response, we got things like, read a biology book or, you're dumb or whatever. And that's not really in the spirit of what we do. And didn't really make a convincing argument either. But again, like I said, the closing did move me a little bit more than Tyler, as well as having a being able to clarify the difference between like what makes a thing biologically human versus when you give that thing rights. But I ended up scoring it 6-4 Lutch.
6-4 Lutch. All three debates, the judges have agreed. I don't know that that's ever happened before. That's pretty damn nifty. But
we don't agree on a lot either.
No, exactly. That's a big fucking deal. So I'm gonna give y'all just a couple more seconds to lock in your votes, chat. This would be interesting if also all three victories tonight were 3-0 shutouts, because that also has never happened before. But either way, no matter how you guys vote, we already have the winner, and that's going to be Mr. Lutch, Mr. Indian Jesus. Great fucking job, dude. I appreciate you. And yeah, that was a great debate from both of y'all. I actually took a whole bunch of notes on that one. This was the one that I was most looking forward to, and I hope Chad enjoyed it as much as we did. So let's take a quick look. I'm going to count it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's see the results. Fuck me. Chat is tied 50-50. So that's at least something. That's pretty fucking cool. All right. So it doesn't change the winner, but it does change the rankings because we do go by score cumulative. So with that said, thank you both. Thank all of you guys, actually. This was a new thing. We did a whole bunch of new things tonight, and I think a lot of the new things worked. We might have to dial in some of the new things. Wow, Casey Lee went black and white. I didn't see that coming. So just for those of you who do not know, we are going to now go back. We're going to open it up a little bit. Everybody's able to kind of talk. We're going to go through the prompts one at a time in order, but I think, we're probably going to spend only a little bit of time on the second one just because of the fact that we had Emmett's already gone for the day. But fucking huzzah. Great job. Thanks, everybody.